afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call this meeting of Tallahassee City Commission to order. It is 3:01 in the afternoon on March 27th. It is my honor and privilege to introduce Pastor David Eggleston of New Image Christian Center that will be providing the invocation. Pastor, if you'll come join us, and everyone, if you'll please rise.
Thank you, Mayor. Bow your heads, let's pray. Oh God, we come before you with gratitude. We thank you for being the God of love who will never leave us nor forsake us. Your grace has brought us thus far, and your grace will lead us on. I thank you, Lord, for these your servants, our mayor, the city council members, and their staff. I give thanks for their service to ensure that Tallahassee is a beacon of light in our state as they represent everyone in our city. I ask you to serve to watch over their families as they carry the burdens and the joy of such great responsibility. Help us, oh God, to lean to you for wisdom needed to make policies and regulations that enhance all segments of Tallahassee. In your word, you have expressed clear expectations for those who sit in places of authority. In Psalm 72, we have the prayer for the king. Give love of justice to the king, O God, and the righteousness to the king's son. Help him judge your people in the right way. Let the poor always be treated fairly. May the mountains yield prosperity for all, and may the hills be fruitful. Help him to defend the poor, to rescue the children of the needy, and to crush their oppressors. May they fear you as long as the sun shines, as long as the moon remains in the sky, yes, forever. And so we pray that you will glorify through their decisions of this great council. May your truth be revealed. May your light shine brighter. May the voices of those who are most silent be heard loud and clear. Defend their cause, O God, through this governing body. I pray they act with love for the common good of all of Tallahassee. Again, Lord, thank you for these elected officials and for those who work to make this place we call home such a wonderful city. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, if you will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor, thank you so much for that wonderful invocation. And it is a wonderful season. It's the season of Ramadan. It is the season of Passover. It is the season of Easter. We all have a lot to celebrate. We've got a wonderful agenda ahead of us tonight. We have a public hearing at 6 o'clock as well. Before we begin, I'd like to once again encourage everyone to please join me in showing the world on how we set the example for civility and how we treat each other right and just as we move forward. And thank you for joining with me as well. So, Mr. Manager, do we have any agenda modifications?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Item 501 has been added to your agenda. It is a presentation. And item 10.04 on the Tallahassee Housing Authority Board of Commissioners appointment has been removed and will be added at a later date. Okay, excellent. Any questions on the agenda modifications? No. The only other modification that we have is, do we have former Commissioner Mark Mustian, the chair of the Charter Review Commission? Is he with us yet? Okay, I know he's traveling back into town, colleagues. So if we get to that point in the agenda and he is not here yet, then we will skip it and keep moving forward and then go back to that particular item when he does arrive. Okay? All right, seeing none. Commissioner Richardson, I'm going to turn the floor over to you for a special presentation, and we're going to join you down.
All righty, good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor. It's my esteemed pleasure to present this proclamation, as I have annually for several years now, declaring the month of March as National Multiple Sclerosis Month. And I would ask Natasha and Kea if they would come and join us to accept the proclamation. Thank y'all for being here. All right. And the proclamation reads, whereas multiple sclerosis is a neurological disease of the central nervous system affecting nearly 1 million people in the United States alone, and whereas multiple sclerosis generally strikes people in the prime of life, between ages 20 through 50, and the cause and course of the often debilitating system of MS remains unknown and no cure currently exists. And whereas the National Multiple Sclerosis Society is committed to a world free of MS, heightening public knowledge about the insight into the disease, and whereas together we have transformed what it means to live with MS and provided global leadership to help achieve our vision of a world free of MS. Whereas since 1946, the National Multiple Sclerosis Society has been a driving force in MS research, relentlessly pursuing prevention, treatments, and a cure, and has invested more than $1 billion in groundbreaking research. And whereas funds raised through the National Multiple Sclerosis Society fuel research on pathways to MS cures and invest in the MS research workforce at the best medical centers, universities, and other institutions throughout the U.S. and abroad, leading to many breakthroughs in the treatment of MS. And whereas stopping MS in its tracks, restoring what has been lost, ending MS forever is a mission of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and one that all Americans and Floridians should support. And whereas the City of Tallahassee recognizes the importance of finding the cause and cure of MS and expresses its appreciation for the dedication and the National Multiple Sclerosis Society has shown towards a world free of MS. Now, therefore, I, and this is on behalf of the Mayor, John E. Daly, by the authority vested in me as Mayor of the City of Tallahassee, do hereby recognize National Multiple Sclerosis Month in the City of Tallahassee, urge all citizens to support the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and encourage Tallahassee residents with MS and their families. And it's signed by the mayor this 27th day of March, 2024. Ladies.
I'm sure many of you have seen me before, but I want to thank you all for continuing to recognize us, recognizing our efforts here in Tallahassee as we continue to raise awareness and bring awareness to the city about multiple sclerosis. Hopefully, as many of you know, multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease that affects the central nervous system, which drives everything we do. And many of us living with MS have invisible symptoms. So you see us standing here accepting proclamations, and we don't have those debilitating symptoms, whereas Ashley Peterman, who wanted to be here today to accept the proclamation, does have some symptoms and complications with her MS. So again, we thank you all for continuing to stand with us, rally behind us in this effort as we continue to create a space for those that are not able to raise their voice, but create a comfortable space and environment that we can continue to thrive in. So again, I thank you all.
Mayor, while we're posing for the picture, I wanted to recognize Ashley again. Ashley is a wonderful young lady. She's recently married, and she and her husband just had their first child, and he is an absolute pleasure. So let's keep Ashley and her family in our prayers.
All right, on the point of personal privilege, it is my honor to introduce four incredible individuals that are here representing Troop 109, working on one of their scout badges on their path to Eagle. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. It's great to see you here. Okay, we are moving on. Are there any announcements to come before the City Commission?
No, sir.
All right, has former Commissioner Mustin joined us yet?
Mayor, I don't believe he's here, but we will let you know as soon as we see him arrive.
Okay, sounds great. We will come back to 7.01 as soon as the former commissioner gets here. We are on the consent agenda. Mr. Manager, has any items been pulled off the consent agenda?
No, sir.
Okay, do we have any public comment on any of the consent agenda items?
I don't believe so, Mayor. Let me make sure these last speakers
Take a second.
are not,
We do have one, it looks like.
yes. I have one speaker on 8.09.
Okay, we will pull 8.09. Any other public comments on any other? Okay, any direction on the consent agenda?
Move consent.
Second.
Has been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. We are now on item 8.09. Mr. Cox, who's going to be presenting this one? Will it be Mr. Cox on behalf of the CRA? Any introduction from the dais?
No, sir.
Okay.
I will say this item, as Mr. Cox comes forward, is
Sounds
the
great.
acceptance of the Tallahassee Community Redevelopment Agencies, or CRA's, 2023 annual report. Director Cox is in attendance for this item.
Great. Director Cox, thanks for joining us. Brief comments before we get public comment on this particular item?
Thank you for the opportunity, sir. Essentially, this is our annual report. It's an opportunity to showcase or highlight some of the things that we've achieved during the previous fiscal year. So if you have any questions, I am available to answer them.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. So let's go straight into public comment. Mr. Cook?
Yes, Mayor, we have one speaker on the item, Stanley Sims. I'll let everyone know, as Mr. Sims is well aware, 3 minutes for each speaker's comments with the lighting system starting at green there in front of the mayor and mayor pro tem. It will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining, and I give you a heads up.
Excellent. Your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Stanley Sims. I'm at 1320 Avondale Way. And this afternoon, I'm standing in the gap for Ms. Priscilla Hawkins. She was unable to be here today, but she has some very serious concerns in reference to the report that is being submitted. She said that she had made these reports, made her concerns knowledgeable to you, Commissioner Richardson, and she's listening for it. But she said that there in the report, in the second sentence, it says that the final distribution of $1.25 million was made in the fiscal year. According to Ms. Hawkins, that is not a true statement. More than $800,000 had to be reallocated in December of 2023. When we were told the Florida legislature disallowed CRA funds to be provided in certain categories, those CRA funds were reallocated, ABD approved on December the 5th, 2023 by bond CAT leads, and then ratified and approved on December 18, 2023. 70-plus bonds, residents, and property owners at a meeting scheduled by Leanne Watts of the City of Tallahassee Neighborhood Affairs. Can the CRA annual report be removed from today's consent agenda, or at least, I don't know what that misspelled word is, be on the record? I guess the gist of what she is saying, she said $250,000 was approved by the City Commission CRA Board April 22. I believe as matching funds for historic Robertson Grocery Store grant application. And I apologize to you, Mayor, and the fellow commissioners. She was actually sending me this as I'm standing. But the gist of her comments, and I know you all are really aware of Ms. Hawkins. She is very active in this community, and her concerns for her to go to this extreme to get you to hear. So we have a CRA meeting tomorrow, and so hopefully that she can get a better clarification. There is a lot of concerns about money with the CRA. Where do we go here? And transparency. So I don't want to muddy her thoughts with mine. So thank you, Mayor, for the time.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment on this item?
No, sir.
All right, I'm looking for direction. Commissioner Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My aide spoke to Mr. Cox about when I just got the email from Ms. Hawkins, and you had an explanation. Is it something you could speak to?
Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. So for the annual report, we highlighted certain projects. The Robinson store was not a project that we highlighted. We did receive the grant, and we are essentially, once we finish the renovations, we'll highlight the project as kind of a before and after. But right now, we didn't include it in kind of highlighting it for the annual report. In regards to the neighborhood first dollars, we talked about the money being allocated, meaning that the board approved the money for the budget, not the reallocation. We didn't really delve into the reallocation as part of our budget discussion within the annual report. But yes, we do recognize that there was a reallocation of the funds, but the dollars were already, provided for Neighborhood First, and how they choose to move the money was not really part of the discussion for the report.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent.
Move acceptance of the staff recommendation.
Second.
It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. Okay, we are on City Commission appointments, 10.01. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. We have several appointments this evening. The first is item 10.01. Gabrielle Gabrielli is seeking reappointment to the Joint City-County Bicycling Work Group. She's recommended for a second term, which will expire December 2026.
Great. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
So move.
Second.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox. I'll give a second to Commissioner Porter. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. 10.02, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Item 10.02 recommends appointment of David Melito to fill seat 3 on the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. If appointed, his term will expire on June 30th of 2025. Would obviously be his first term.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. 10.03, Mr. Clerk.
Item 10.03, the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls recommends Ashley Gilly to serve out the unexpired portion of term on seat 17. This would be an appointment by the members of the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls, so it seeks your ratification of this appointment.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
All right, colleagues.
Move option 1, Mr. Mayor.
Been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. 10.04 has been deleted. We're on 10.05. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Item 10.05 is an appointment to the Special Events Advisory Committee. This is an appointment by Commissioner Matlow of Will Crowley to serve out the term of seat 3, which expires on February 28th of 2025. Again, individual commissioner appointee, but it comes to you for ratification, as is our custom.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment on this?
No, sir.
Commissioner Matlow, you're recognized.
Thank you. Move acceptance.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Porter. Motion by Commissioner Matlow. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. Do we have any other appointments come before the body today?
No, sir.
We're on the introduction of ordinance. Madam Attorney, 11.01, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 11.01 is the introduction of ordinance number 24-0-08, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee adopting a small-scale amendment to the 2030 Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan to change the future land use map designation from the residential preservation land use category to the neighborhood boundary land use category along Osceola Street from Pasco Street to Holton Street, providing for severability and conflicts and providing an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, introduce ordinance number 24-0-08 and set the first and only public hearing and action on April 10, 2024, at 6 p.m. in the City of Tallahassee City Commission chambers at City Hall.
Right, the recommended action is simply introduce the ordinance. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, Mayor, on item 1101, Erwin Jackson. And that's the only speaker I have on the item.
Excellent. Your name and address for the record, please, and you have 3 minutes. The clerk will let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Erwin Jackson, 1341 Jackson Bluff. A couple weeks ago, I came up here and I was disturbed because I'd tried to make a video comment, and I found out there was a lot more rules involved than what I had anticipated. The worst one is I needed to call the day before I wanted to make a presentation. I had suggested, I was concerned, for example, like tonight at 11:01 or 2 or 3 or 4, if there's someone at home who wanted to comment, they have to call the day in advance. I suggested I think it's a bad idea. I think people should be able to talk. But I did see, and I made a recommendation that on the minutes here, not the minutes, on the agenda here, that we now have an added clause which gives the residents more direction in when they're supposed to call to get registered the day before to speak. And I think that's a much fair, open way of doing it. Whoever decided to do this, I appreciate it, and I think anyone out there trying to use a phone to video in would appreciate it as well. So for that reason, on all these items, that should make it much easier for individuals to speak. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment on 11.01?
No, sir.
Colleagues,
Move option number 1, Mr. Mayor.
option number 1, introduce the ordinance, has been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. We are on item number 11.02. Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 11.02 is the introduction of ordinance number 24-Z-09, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designating land as Neighborhood Boundary 1, NB-1, on the official zoning map from residential preservation to RP-2 along Osceola Street from Pasco Street to Holton Street, providing for conflict and severability and providing an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, introduce ordinance number 24-Z-09 and set the first and only public hearing and action on April 10, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the City of Tallahassee City Commission chambers at City Hall. Any ex parte disclosures concerning this item are available via the hyperlink included in the agenda item as published in the board doc system.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
All right, colleagues.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Item 11.03, Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 11.03 is the introduction of ordinance number 24-0-10, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee adopting a small-scale amendment to the 2030 Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan to change the future land use map designation from the government operational land use category to the suburban land use category at 2600 Plant Street, providing for severability and conflicts, and providing an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, introduce ordinance number 24-0-10, and set the first and only public hearing and action on April 10, 2024, at 6 p.m. in the City of Tallahassee City Commission chambers at City Hall.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
Okay, colleagues.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. We're on 11.04. Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 11.04 is the introduction of ordinance number 24-0-11, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee adopting a small-scale amendment to the 2030 Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan to change the future land use map designation from the residential preservation land use category to the urban residential 2 land use category at 1726 and 1728 Mahan Drive, providing for severability and conflicts, and providing an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, introduce ordinance number 24-0-11, and set the first and only public hearing and action on April 10, 2024, at 6 p.m. in the City of Tallahassee City Commission chambers at City Hall.
Excellent. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
Okay, colleagues.
Move option 1, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem has properly moved option number 1, the introduction of the ordinance, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Seeing no further comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. We're on item number 11.05.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 11.05 is the introduction of ordinance number 24-Z-12, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designating land as medium-density residential, MR, on the official zoning map from Residential Preservation 2, RP2, at 1726 and 1728 Mahan Drive, providing for conflict and severability and providing an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, introduce ordinance number 24-Z-12 and set the first and only public hearing and action on April 10, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the City of Tallahassee City Commission chambers at City Hall. Any ex parte disclosures concerning this item are available via the hyperlink included in the agenda item as published in the board docs system.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No speakers.
Colleagues.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Madam Attorney, 11.06.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 11.06 is the introduction of ordinance number 24-0-13, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee adopting a small-scale amendment to the 2030 Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan to change the future land use map designation from the Central Urban and Residential Preservation Land Use category to the Central Urban Land Use category at intersection of East Magnolia Drive, South Gadsden Street, and Lewis Street, providing for severability and conflicts, and providing an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, introduce ordinance number 24-0-13, and set the first and only public hearing and action on April 10, 2024, at 6 p.m. in the City of Tallahassee City Commission chambers at City Hall.
Excellent. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this?
No, sir.
Colleagues.
Move staff recommendation.
It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Porter. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Item 11.07, Madam Attorney.
Item number 11.07 is the introduction of ordinance number 24-Z-14, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designating land as Central Urban, CU 45, on the official zoning map from Central Urban, CU 45, and Residential Preservation 2, RP2, at the intersection of East Magnolia Drive, South Gadsden Street, and Lewis Street, providing for conflict and severability and providing an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, introduce ordinance number 24-Z-14 and set the first and only public hearing and action on April 10, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the City of Tallahassee City Commission chambers at City Hall. Any ex parte disclosures concerning this item are available via the hyperlink included in the agenda item as published in the board docs system.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this?
We do not.
Colleagues.
Move option 1 as recommended by staff, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem has properly moved the item, seconded by Commissioner Porter. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. We're on item 11.08, Madam Attorney.
Item number 11.08 is the introduction of ordinance number 24-0-01, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee updating the capital improvements element of the 2030 Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan, providing for severability and conflicts, and providing an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, adopt ordinance number 24-0-01, and set the first and only public hearing and action on April 10, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the City of Tallahassee City Commission chambers at City Hall.
Excellent. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
Colleagues?
So move.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Do we have any other ordinances to be introduced this evening, Madam Attorney?
We do not.
We're on policy formation and direction, 12.01. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This next item is an update on the council of the status of men and boys. I'd like to recognize Assistant Sheriff Argatha Gilmore. She's with us tonight. Good to see you, Assistant Sheriff. And I'd like to invite Director Royal King forward. He's going to give the presentation. Your agenda packet has some materials on that. We all recognize Royal and his efforts. He's presented to us before, and he's here tonight to provide that update.
Mr. King, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. All right, so hopefully I won't take up too much time, but this is a very important update, and happy to be here to be able to provide that. So just always starting at the front of mind with what the council is in place to do, always revisiting the mission and vision, which is to be able to unify existing agencies, organizations, and individuals in our community, coordinate resources, funding, and services under a multidisciplinary plan, for reducing fatals and non-fatal shootings in our community. And then the vision, preserving life by preventing homicides and non-fatal shootings in Leon County, providing support and services to the men and boys who are at most risk, and addressing those underlying causes that are critical to the roots of violence in our community, which some of those are health, employment, and education. And so always, went a little too fast, wanting to recognize the entities that join Sheriff in saying, let's make this council a legitimate thing, which the city is a huge partner in that, as well as the school board and the county, always acknowledging the support and resources you all provide to the work we've been able to do. So wanted to also make sure we started by saying thank you. And so the ask was an update on what we've been doing. And so since the last time we met, one of the really big things we've been doing in the schools specifically is working with students at Gasvini, which is where students who are severely behind academically attend, as well as have been expelled from their home zone school. And so this is just since August last year, we've been able to directly impact 226 young males and females to be included, which is a total of 753 direct contacts. We include the contacts because when you're working with youth that we sometimes define as high risk, it takes more than one time to be able to see small growth. And so we've had over 753 direct contacts with those students. We've also been able to expand our sub-program beyond just Gasvini, which houses two campuses, the Success Academy, as well as, oh man, I'm drawing a brain fart. Second Chance, excuse me. And so now we're also in Rickards, Gabi, and Leon. And those schools weren't chosen by accident. They are because they feed into the zip codes where we're experiencing a lot of our gun violence in our community. And so as of January, those schools have given us some of their greatest need male students, all identified by school leadership because they know them much better than we do. And so we've been working with those students as well. Also wanted to note, and of that 226, sometimes it's viewed that when a student ends up at Gasvini, they don't make it out. They've been expelled, continue to have issues which allow the stay to be there longer. And so since our time working there last year, we've been able to successfully get 18 of our students back to their home zone school. And as of yet, they haven't had any significant issues being returned to those home campuses, which is critical. And really proud of the work our life coaches have been able to do in that capacity. So the schools is a part, and again, that came from the anatomy, wanting to make sure we had large impact in the schools because of the data, always wanting to make sure that what we're doing is based on our findings. And so we also have been doing work in the community. And in the community, that part is essential because some of the students that we're engaging, young people, aren't in school. They've dropped out and or have aged out, if you will. And so wanting to understand that it's needed to have work beyond the schools. And so in the community, and again, this is just since August, we've had a direct impact on 99 young men. We've been able to conduct and/or attend over 97 community meetings, all related around the conversations and the importance of gun violence. We've tried to make sure that any events, conversations that are happening, that we're involved, we're supporting that effort, but also making sure the information that comes out of that is a part of our greater plan and what we're trying to do as a community. We've also been able to be very involved with the process for the gun violence funding money that went out. We were able to support currently the 4 agencies who are receiving those dollars and connecting them to some of the youth that we've already identified that are at great risk for needing some services. And one of the things when we came last time before you, we had talked about several things that we wanted to do. And one of those things was the post-suspension program. Well, I'm happy to report now that it has a name. It's the SMART program, and it is in operation. And so I don't want to give it the thunder that it needs. So I'm going to invite Dr. Singleton at this time to talk about the efforts we've been able to achieve and what's happening now through that post-suspension program where students who have been suspended from school can go.
Singleton, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Mr. King mentioned the SMART program that we're hosting on FAMU's campus. We are very honored to have the opportunity to touch the lives of our youth and to assist them in understanding that their mistakes don't define them. And it's so important to have that opportunity. So the SMART, I'll start there. So again, SMART, encouraging them to think about themselves and think about their lives and their potential and their capabilities, but also it's an acronym. So we provide training on self-management, motivation, awareness, and that's personal awareness as well as social awareness, resilience, as well as teamwork. So we engage them, and I say we, so let me tell about the team. So I am a neuropsychologist, so I study brain development and how it impacts emotions, behaviors, cognitive processing. We also have on our team a school psychologist, educational psychologist, developmental psychologist. We also have graduate students who are in the master's program completing their requirements for graduation. So they've been assigned to us to serve their internship. And they've been trained in providing screening, which they do. We provide screenings for the youth in the program, mental health screening, as well as cognitive or learning screening to better inform us. We also use that to provide information to parents as well as to the schools about the youth. So providing that information to assist them in guiding the youth and hopefully in their transition to continue on the right path. We also have first-year graduate students working with us who are in the pipeline to be assigned to us to work for an internship, as well as advanced undergraduate students who they're trained to work as mentors. So this team of individuals all come in with the same idea of being very positive-minded, encouraging and uplifting our youth, as well as providing these resources. So in addition to the social emotional learning, life skills, we also provide academic support. Honestly, just today, an amazing thing was a math workshop. The one young man was talking about his goal that he set for himself was to improve in math. He said he'd been struggling with math for a few years now, and that his goal was to improve. And to also talk with his teachers to find out what he needs to do better in math. And so with his goals, so again, using their own goals that they've set for themselves, we design activities around those needs. So we design workshops. They were engaged in workshops. He's at the board and very excited to celebrate his success that, wow, I do know how to do math. I can do this. And setting a plan, SMART goals to continue math tutorials each day for maybe about 30 minutes and to not to be difficult on himself if he forgot. So again, we are very thrilled to have the opportunity. I can go on and on. I will say one thing, we are very grateful to Dr. Gale and the schools for providing breakfast a light breakfast and a bag lunch for the youth in the program as well. We're also grateful to have the opportunity to collaborate with Leon County Schools, Leon County Sheriff's Office, and the Council on the Status of Men and Boys.
Thank you, Dr. Singleton. And thought it was important that you heard from her because I could not describe the great work in that program as well as she did. And it is one of the things that we brought to this body, and with the resources you've all provided us are allowing us to make that happen. And then these slides are just additional ones that talk about the process of the program. So we had last talked about the funding we received from the federal government, the Community-Based Violence Initiative and Prevention funding. Again, that money that we were awarded was for October of 2022 through September of 2025. That first year, which we've completed, and a lot of which I'm going to update on from today, was for planning. So a lot of the work we did with that funding was geared toward the planning and all of the research and great findings that we were able to kind of find through that process. But now we'll begin to go into our implementation stage for that process. Just a reminder of what the strategy calls for from the federal government. It must deploy a navigation system, which is the system that we already have in place through our navigators. At the council, identify and implement additional strategies. This will improve trust between law enforcement and the community, which is a huge one, and we'll talk a lot about that. Establish capacity within our community, enhance data and cross-sharing, and implement CVI strategies, which is the most important thing.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Porter.
could I ask a few questions, a few clarifying questions?
Sure.
Thank you. Could you go into a little bit more detail about what each of these are? So the navigation system, what exactly does that mean?
So essentially, we have a team of navigators. We've got community, school-based, as well as life coaches. Their main primary responsibilities are to be those liaisons for those areas of our community. So all school-based, everything, expert in what resources are available for all individuals, youth, prevention and intervention services. And then also that same thing on the community side. What exists in our community to support high-risk individuals and what is needed to be able to support them. So assessing and identifying what those gaps are, and then going after those resources to be able to stand in them.
Thank you. And can you do that for each one as you do it? Go into a little bit more detail?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So identify and implement additional strategies. So one of the major goals is to, we had the anatomy of the homicide that told us a story, but we needed to be able to build off of that. And so, and that one is doing the research to be able to identify additional strategies and what are other things that need to be implemented to see in the near term reductions in violence in our community. And so a few of the next slides will talk about some of that additional research and how we took the anatomy as the starting point and took it to a higher level. But also making sure that the strategies develop improvement in law enforcement trust. We found out in a lot of our research that there's often not a true trust between law enforcement and communities that are experiencing gun violence. And so being intentional in whatever strategy we implement to be able to not only bridge those gaps, but to create that trust in neighborhoods where crime is high. Establish capacity. So one of the things we did was conduct a survey, a needs assessment, if you will, for service providers in our community, breaking down the services they provide, the ages, what they have capacity for, who they will serve, who they won't serve. Because when you start talking about high-risk individuals, there are a lot of programs that won't necessarily work with a young adult, young person who is justice involved. So understanding what exists already and what gaps are in place. And so that needs assessment kind of told us that story on what was needed and where we need to additionally establish capacity for this work. And then enhance data and cross-sharing. One of the big things is that, and you saw it in the mission, is to unify our community's efforts. We have a lot of good community programs and things that are happening, but too much of it is in silos, and a lot of times people, service providers feel like they are in competition with each other. So a big part of what we want to do is to be able to cross-share the data and the successes in areas of where things are happening in a positive way and also in a negative way so that we can collectively improve as a community, not just as an individual program. And then the most important one is implement the community violence intervention strategies. You cannot have any success in terms of reducing violence if you don't implement any of the strategies to the full fidelity of their models to then see what other gaps exist. Understanding that when you do research and then you implement something, there will always be impediments that you just don't understand. You can prep as much as you want and fully engage in all the parts of the strategy, but until you're walking it, much like anything in life, you won't understand what needs to be adjusted. So implementing those CVI strategies that we've identified to be successful, and then going back to see what areas we need to improve or where we're strong at. Just wanted to, again, highlight our partners in this work that got us to the point we are today: the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, the Florida State University College of Criminology, and Salter Mitchell Public Relations firm, all rock stars in their own right. And so this is all kind of pertaining to the research that informed our plan and a lot of what got us to the strategy that we're beginning to implement. And so Florida State is our research partner, and they were charged with the big task of building upon the anatomy. And so the anatomy told us a part of the story, but we wanted to be able to dive a lot deeper into that and be able to make sure what we begin to implement was speaking to what we were seeing as recent as the end of last year, right, June of 2023. And so FSU is our research partner in this work, and they are with us the entirety. First part of it was to conduct research on the front end and to tell us the story of where we need to be focusing at and looking at what strategies make the most sense for our community. And then the next few stages we'll talk about in terms of evaluating and making sure that we're following the process that we said we were going to do. Also, the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform was a huge part of this work as well. Not only were they our facilitators and our national partner in that we wanted to make sure that in this process we brought in people who had been doing this type of work. Gun violence reduction is a unique frame. It's not like knitting or basket weaving. So we wanted to make sure we had a partner who done this kind of facilitation, but also assisted with the research as well. And a part of the work that they did was a gun violence assessment that looked at some of the zip codes we've already identified that were at great risk. And then, of course, Salter Mitchell PR cannot have a true community violence intervention plan without having voice from the community. And so Salter and Mitchell were our partners to be able to conduct a survey for us and tell us what our community's thoughts around gun violence are, and what did they want to see? What do they want to see potentially in a plan? And Salter and Mitchell is also our partner so that at the conclusion of the grant, we will revisit the survey to see if we've made any changes. And so another critical part of this work in developing a plan was having a planning team. Those research partners are extremely critical to this work, but again, we needed representation from every cross-sector of our community that involves in the cycle of someone's life in a homicide to be a part of this work. And so we started with a 76-person planning team initially, but by the time we got to the end of the year, it had dwindled down some to that core group of people who were truly committed, engaged, to making sure that we develop a plan that was going to be able to be something that we can not only be proud of, that would really allow us to see some success in reducing violence in our community in the near term. And so I want to read quickly the vision that planning team came up with. We envision a future where safety becomes a reality for all Leon County residents, as gun violence is effectively disrupted through evidence-based prevention and intervention strategies and in collaboration with community-based providers. We envision a future where all residents feel hope and are able to realize their full potential. To achieve this vision, we will promote wraparound support for impacted community members, ensure strong community engagement throughout all violence reduction efforts, and advocate for mutual communal value supporting safety for all individuals. And I will save you some time on reading to you all of the other goals that we set through that planning team, but one of the primary ones was that we wanted to be able to reduce gun violence in the near term, and when we say near term, 1 to 2 years. So to briefly kind of talk about some of the findings from that survey that Salter and Mitchell did for us. And so we had 668 responses that were just verifiable responses from community members, hosted 5 listening sessions with influential groups and organizations, and did in-depth interviews with 7 young men between 12 to 16 who all had been justice involved. And so some of those findings from that research, and again, it gets way more deeper, but just at a very high level, when asking a free response, the majority of survey respondents, some form of gun control as the best solution, 28% of those 668. When presented with potential solutions, respondents selected decreasing gang activity, decreasing drug activity, increasing community-based youth organized activities. And so again, you'll see the gang part is high, and as I kind of talk more, you'll come to know that we don't really have a huge gang problem. However, part of what our task is to be able to inform our community about the things that we really are seeing, and that it's not a gang problem, even though in the survey, a lot of our residents' perception is that we have a huge gang issue. Okay, and so the main causes, again, this is all from the survey results: drug, gang, and other criminal activity, conflict resolution, poverty, unemployment, and economic disparity. And here were some of those solutions that came from our community of citizens: programs in education, interventions and/or support for youth, families, and the community at large. And so that is critically important because all of this is data that we want to make sure is a part of the violence reduction plan. We want residents to be behind the efforts that we implement. Understanding that, again, some of the opposite work is that communicating to residents that we don't have a gang problem, but those other things in terms of potential solutions and what they want to see are things that we really need to consider and look at, and we definitely did that. And so I talked about FSU, and they are, again, are our research partners in this process, and doing a deeper dive in the anatomy. So the anatomy stopped at 2020, and the FSU research took us from June of 2019 through June of last year, and told us a really detailed story. They were able to access some critical data from the sheriff's office as well as the police department. And some of those findings pretty much told us they examined 1,930 cases and identified 733 relevant incidents. That data includes homicides that involve weapons, aggravated assaults, shootings into dwellings, and i.e. drive-bys as well. And so again, this is what the research told us. In most of those incidents, again, a lot of this we knew from anatomy, but it's always important to have the most updated data as much as possible. And again, this goes through June of 2023. Most incidents involved young black men as both victims and suspects, involved acquaintances and strangers. And so here's, again, is that education opportunity to where it's not a gang problem, but the violence that we're seeing is not as just random as you might think, that there is some relationship. But then also there are some instances where they're just strangers. Occurred in the street or at private residence, were arguments related to perceived disrespect, which is a huge one, and were not directly related to drugs and gangs. And again, so this is most of the incidents in that research of that 1,093. And so from that, we wanted to implement a strategy that would not only be community informed, but also had been shown to be successful in the community experiencing gun violence in the way that we are, And so that strategy that came out of the planning process as a recommendation was the strategy of focused deterrence. And so a focused deterrence strategy is what the name says. It has a focus on areas and individuals in our community who are involved in a lot of what we're seeing in terms of gun violence, and focusing our efforts in those spaces to be able to see reduction in the near term, 1 to 2 years. So a part of the strategy is that focused deployment of engaging high-risk individuals, and it calls for call-in meetings and some other parts of the strategy as well. Also a part of that is hotspots policing, which I know a lot of you know about what hotspots policing is, and again, it's that focused in areas where we're seeing a lot of the gun violence. In the research we found, and again, these are things that you all know, it's not the whole Leon County, Tallahassee, it's small zip codes and communities where we're seeing it, and if we can focus our efforts not only towards reducing gun violence, but also pouring as many resources into those communities as possible, we'll be able to see some reduction. So it's not just the crime enforcement, but it's also infusing that community with needs and resources to be able to also support itself. Also a part of the focused deterrence strategy is problem-oriented policing and community-oriented policing, which I'll talk about in strategy 2 of our bigger plan with community engagement. Quick breath. Okay, and so I just outlined those strategies, all of them here, and I'm just gonna speak to, again, at a high level, all of this is in the reduction plan, but wanting to kind of, for time purposes, not go into every part of it, but again, in the plan, it breaks it all down. So I kind of broke down the focused deterrence strategy. Also happy to say we've been able to successfully work with the Sheriff's Office and TPD hand in hand in the process to make sure that in the strategy of focused deterrence, that all parties were engaged and involved and able to support and working collectively together. So that community engagement piece is a critical one. Next week, myself and some of our team will be in Chicago attending the National Community Violence Intervention and Prevention Initiative Conference and training. And a part of this strategy is to be able to bring in trainings for our community to where residents and citizens in neighborhoods where gun violence is high can receive training on how to support and engage with community members related to violence intervention. And so that training is one I'm using as an example, but that is a part of our community engagement plan, is to be able to train up some of what we want to see in our neighborhoods with individuals that are trusted voices in those spaces. Also, a big part of this is trust with law enforcement and engaging law enforcement as well as community and community-based programs to be able to be a part of the work that we're doing, because if there's no trust, then how are the citizens who are experiencing the violence going to be able to communicate things that are happening before they happen? So a lot of our efforts and strategies are going to be towards that as well. The prevention piece, and so this is more so the long game when you talk about prevention. In the near term, when we talk about strategies, that focused deterrence and that community engagement, those pieces are like right now as much as possible, but we also know we have to play the long game. A lot of what we see just from the data that we have starts as early as elementary with reading scores and self-esteem and how young men, young black boys view themselves. And so if they already feel like they've been labeled as a statistic or thrown away, if you will, at 3rd and 4th grade, and they live in a community where there are a lot of disparities, they're already at a higher risk for making a decision in the negative, for being a positive citizen in our community. And so the prevention part is a huge part of this, is because as we're doing this work, we see it a lot of times, the law enforcement is arresting families. And so if all of our strategies are focused only on the people involved in gun violence today, then we may have a reduction today, but tomorrow the problem will be right back up. And so the prevention piece is that focus on being able to work with youth and young adults and preventing the involvement with crime and gun violence in our community while we're still executing a strategy that is targeting those who are at high risk. One of the sad realities of this type of work is that we cannot save everybody. That was a hard thing for me to accept, and a community mindset that we could save everybody, but the reality is we just won't be able to. There are individuals in our community who have committed significant crimes who just aren't at the position to where we'll be able to support them in terms of being in our community. They'll have to go into a detention facility or correction environment and be able to receive those opportunities and come back into our community. And then the other two parts of the strategy, implementation and outcome evaluation. And so FSU is our partner and our grader, if you will, throughout this whole process to ensure that we follow the model of focused deterrence to fidelity and understanding, again, there will be impediments. Nothing is executed out of the gate just perfectly. And so understanding that we need to evaluate that to be able to understand where we have gaps and barriers and be able to pivot, but then also be able to support other communities as they will support us through the grant funding, where some of those barriers they may have hit, we have access to that data as well. And so to be able to evaluate the ongoing process of this work is critical, and FSU is our partner, and they are involved hand in toe in all of the things that we do and making sure that, again, we're following the implementation model to its full fidelity so that we can see the reductions we want to see. And then strategy 5, it is called for us to have a review panel. Again, a body to be looking at this work as we're doing it, made up of individuals from law enforcement, the state attorney's office, community-based program service providers, education, community, and research, to be a part of this panel to regularly review the implementation and outcomes that we're seeing in our reduction plan. And so that is the conclusion of our report. And so in short, just wanting to communicate, in a short amount of time, we've been able to impact a lot of young men and women in our high-risk schools. But still in doing that, developing our plan, which we're beginning now to implement, we'll be fully implementing here to be able to see, I'm confident, a lot of reductions here pretty soon.
Before we get into discussion, anybody here just have a couple of questions before we go to public comment? So, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Royal, two things. One is a comment, then a question. This sounds very similar to what we're doing with our Tempo program, some elements of it anyway. Are you seeing, are these young people also being encouraged, if they don't have a high school diploma, to get their GED, to get some type of technical or career education or academic education as well? Yeah, so absolutely. We Tempo members were a part of our planning team. And so for those individuals, yes, that is probably, in terms of that is probably our first referral out to that. Okay. But yes. And has that been successful? Well, so we've been planning on that side. Now we're going to begin implementing all of the, Okay. And then the other issue, I've heard Deputy Chief Holmes talk several times about how these young people are getting the guns. They're taking them from unlocked cars, loaded guns from unlocked cars. Are you seeing that as an issue with the young people that you're working with? Absolutely. So our life coaches develop very trusting relationships with the young men we work with. And when they get comfortable, they are very honest that they could easily access a gun fairly easy, or they have a gun. And so that is a huge problem, the easy access that youth and young adults have to guns in our community. It's incredible how easily they can get to them. Okay. Do they offer solutions, the young people that you're working with, do they offer solutions to what we can be doing better, differently? So, a couple, not any specific to the gun violence, but in terms of just having things for them to do. And that's why a part of what I said was a focus, not just
on criminal activity, but a focus on resources in areas where the crime is high. And so, for an example, we talk about 32304 a lot, but now it's like, well, let's focus some positive things. What services exist? What resources can we bring socially and economically to support those youth and their families? And I think that that'll be a huge help, the social piece. And so some of the things we've done to kind of engage with those youth is bring in fun, if you will, but also educational fun, explaining to them that domestic violence, what that is. A lot of times our young people don't understand what it means to be in a domestic violent relationship or be, when you grow up in something, it just becomes a part of who you are. You don't even realize the trauma that you're experiencing. So the only response was that bringing programming to them in a meaningful way when they're not at school, in their communities. And so a focus of efforts, community-based programmings and activities to those areas.
Okay. And then lastly, are the families involved? Are the parents brought in, grandparents, uncles, aunts? Are they brought into what you do in working with the young men?
Yeah, absolutely. So the response to that one is two-part. So the youth we're already working with, the whole goal is that wraparound. And so we understand that violence is, like I said, a precursor of other things a lot of times. And when the resources aren't there for the family to have the resources they need, right, you kind of just grow up behind the 8 ball sometimes. And so one of the main things our life coaches do is work with that family, not only to refer them to other services, but also let them know what exists. Another part, though, of the implementation plan is those really high-risk individuals that we identify, is that connection to resources and services, but then also the continual follow-up of those who are directly connected to the violence. And that'll be something that you'll see that is new that we weren't already doing, is that targeted intervention.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions before public comment? Commissioner Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much for this presentation and all the work that y'all have done. I'm really excited to read the reports and to see how far that we've come. I have a couple questions. One, I think it's really helpful, the distinction that the reports make and that you've made between prevention and intervention. Prevention is when we're talking about mostly kids and who have not entered the criminal justice system, or at least not committed a serious violent offense. And then an intervention is where we're really addressing the adult males mostly who are committing the offenses and are victims of the violence. So it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, right now we have begun the preventative programs, and that's SMART, that's working with the Gasvini Center and with Leon schools. Is that correct?
Yes, but a lot of the young men who are at Gasvini are there because they've been justice involved. And so some of them, it is intervention where they have monitors and have been involved and connected to some stuff. And I forgot to mention, we've been supporting the Juvenile Detention Center here too. Since December, we've been working with youth that are housed there before they are deployed to a program. And we're working on an MOU right now with Department of Juvenile Justice that when they return from that program, we will be able to track and connect them, because those are the ones that are already involved at a higher level by going to that detention center. And so that MOU is going to be critical to, again, some of the reduction efforts. And so even though those are juveniles, they're young adults, and that most of them 17, 18, and they're involved in a lot of what we're seeing.
Okay, and so can you speak a little bit more about the timeline as far as the next steps and the recommended, in the phase 1 report sort of, and what you outlined as far as the focused deterrence, the hotspot policing, has that begun yet? So
some of that is already happening between the law enforcement agencies. One of the new parts of that is the cross-sharing and the collaboration that we'll be doing, and an involvement of sharing some of that information with the individuals who are engaged in that. Another part of that is the involvement with the state attorney's office and the judges. we are in conversation and are excited at the opportunity that the requirement will be implemented, that those who are justice involved, who are hadn't committed a homicide yet, but have the tendency of what they're doing to be involved, would have to work with the council. And from there, we will be able to connect them to some of the necessary services that they need. But the difficult part in this work is that people involved in violence aren't signing up for a program. They're not just waving their hands saying, hey, provide me some support. So that gives us some additional teeth to force them to have to engage with the services that we have to be able to be successful.
Thank you. Are there any, and correct me if I'm wrong, as far as the prevention, even though I'm happy to hear that, well, you've stated that some of the youth or, who are juveniles have come in contact with the criminal justice system already. Are there any preventative programs or methods that we're thinking about that target specifically adults? Because we know that people committing the offenses are, in the average age of like 26 years old. They're not 18, the majority. So is there anything that we're thinking about that's targeted preventatively to that age group?
Yes. So a part of what we're intending to do is bring on a navigator who will be that liaison, if you will, but for adult prevention as well as intervention. So in communities where we're experiencing the gun violence. And again, our goal is global, right, for our community, but a lot of what we're going to be doing is focusing on these zip codes where the violence is high. And so the individual that I'm speaking of will be focused on those zip codes and trying to build within those communities some of the capacity to support some of those residents who need support or services the most. But yes, we intend to hire a navigator who will be our bridge in that space.
Okay. And will most or all of the navigators be staff?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
This will be their job, which was something that was important. The training part of it is that there are residents in our community who live in these neighborhoods and want to be a part of it. So we need to equip the communities, in the smaller communities of our large community where we're experiencing the violence, with some of those skill sets. And not to say that an opportunity for that to become a job for them won't happen either, but this will be their job so that they can focus all of their work time in this community space.
Okay. And what does that training look like that navigators will receive, and who does that?
So I can't tell you specifically the details of it. We are partnered with the community-based prevention services, which is another national partner that we are partnered with on the grant. And then when we go to this conference next week, a lot of it will center around the training elements about building some of the sustainability within the community, so that it's not only people whose job it is, but that's an important part, but community has some of what it needs to be able to respond adequately to the crime we're experiencing. So I don't have the exact answer yet, but I'm confident and excited at what will come out of the conference. Will be at all next week, and what will be available from that. We've done some training where we've sent our navigators to St. Louis and Baton Rouge for 3- and 4-day trainings where they received it. And then at this conference, I'm excited at the opportunity of how we bring that and work it into this Tallahassee community.
One of the reports says that there's been something like an 83% increase in the gun violence between 2018 and 2021, that period that was assessed. I understand what we're seeing is that it's not mostly related to gun violence. It's mostly kind of disputes between individuals. It could be drug related. It's at nighttime in the early morning. But do we have a sense of why the increase? Because it seems like we know a lot about kind of what is the fact pattern, like what's actually happening, but I haven't heard a lot about what we think may be contributing to the increase. I can imagine there's COVID, there's all kinds of factors, but is there something specifically that you point to?
I'm sure it is, and I can bring that back for you. I'm pretty confident it is. I would just need to go back and go through everything, and I can bring that back to you.
Okay, and then, and I know we're going to have more discussion. Two more questions. One, so there is a strategic plan that y'all have, or an implementation plan? Because I don't think that was attached.
Yes, the violence reduction, it should be the violence reduction strategic plan, and it has the 5 strategies in it.
Okay, well, I'll follow up with you about that later, but is there anything above and beyond that the city is currently doing in partnership? We've provided startup funding. We have auxiliary programs such as Tempo. We're providing funding for the CHSP, the gun violence category, which is new. Is there anything else that we can be doing that you recommend we do to support your efforts?
Yeah.
And I imagine that'll be an ongoing conversation, but at this moment, is there something that is an ask of us?
Yeah, well, I think the support that you've given to this point is critical. The FAMU program was something that we presented and brought here, and is now growing, but that was a request that came and was here, and so the funding is secured through September. However, there is no current funding to continue that for the next fiscal year. So that is something that we will need to obviously figure out so that it can continue to be the strong program that it is. And then the gun violence money is going to be a big part of this work. It's going to be huge. Anybody that receives that funding is going to have to align with this plan for us to see what we want to see across our community. And again, it's smaller parts of our community that we're seeing the violence in. And so that doesn't mean we don't want to pull programming out of the other parts. Everything that's working, we want to continue, but we want to focus all of those efforts in these areas where we're seeing a lot of the high gun violence. And so that those partners that are getting that funding or connected it has to all walk and work together.
Thank you.
All right, we do have public comment, but any other questions? Matlow and Commissioner Matlow, and then Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll just ask a couple questions. I know we have limited time here today. I did want to ask about, you mentioned 28% of people suggesting some form of gun control. I know as a local government, we're largely preempted by the state of what we're able to implement, but I did want to ask you, because you mentioned the youth or the people you work with have readily access to firearms. Commissioner Richardson mentioned firearms that are stolen from unlocked vehicles, but do you have any data or a sense of, is that they have a family member that has one, they know where they can purchase one privately, or where they can steal one, or is it across the spectrum?
It is across the spectrum, but a lot of them have been stolen from cars, and you'll see a lot of it where they trade. They're trading firearms as well. And so I think the community has been created where so many now exist that are on the streets that have been, how I want to say it, gotten access to illegally, right? But I think the big thing would be, at this level, to your point, it's not a lot that can be mandated in relation to individuals and how they handle their guns. But we're supporting all of our community efforts around the campaigning for people to lock their cars. But majority of them, they're not telling us that they're from stolen cars, but they've gotten access because so many of them have become available. And our opinion is that cross connection of them coming from cars, and then now they're getting to other individuals, and a lot of them are trading them around the community.
Okay. And you might not know the answer to this, but just wondering out loud is, do we know if the guns that are being stolen from cars are from across the community, or is it also focused on certain areas of the community where cars are unlocked, where we could be more targeted, focused on making sure people lock their cars and preventing the thefts?
So that is a question I don't have the answer to, but I'll make a note, and I think that is something that we can, in working with law enforcement, when those guns are reported, maybe be able to identify what some of those areas are. I'm pretty sure with the relationship there, we could find that out.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. I'm just curious if there's any type of trend we can look at and where they're stolen to see if we can focus on limiting the amount of illegal guns that are entering the market. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Just one comment I wanted to say to Assistant Sheriff Gilmore. Please let our High Sheriff know that we believe that he made the right choice in who to lead this effort. He's doing a fantastic job. I appreciate the thoroughness and the information that's being provided. I also have seen his team. We have the right people doing this in our community, and we certainly do appreciate and lend whatever support we can to make sure that they are successful, because if they are successful, we are successful. So, Mr. King, thank you for a job well done, and I see some of your staff in the back there, Mr. Edwards, and there may be others in the audience as well. Thank you all for what you're doing. I want to make sure that you all know that we appreciate what you're doing, and not just because you're reporting here, because we see you in the community. We see what you're doing in the community, and it is making a difference. So thank you for what you all are doing, and you were the man for the job, and you still are the man for the job. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We got they're like the MIB. They spread all over the room.
They're plain
we got our
clothes. They're
governing
plain
body in
clothes.
here. Everyone is in here.
Okay. Thank you. Why don't y'all stand wherever you are, a wave, so we at least see you. There we go. Men in black, women in black. Thank you all.
Great. Mr. Clerk, let's go to public comment.
Mayor, we have one speaker on the item, Stanley Sims.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Stanley Sims, 1320 Avondale Way. Two things that I really would like to say. I want to thank this commission for investing in this. And, well, two other things I'd like to say. It's two things that I think that we could better educate our community on. A lot of the calls that I get for being established, you got, and if I'm saying this wrong, you might need to help me. But you're not a direct services, as of right now. People keep asking me why I can't partner with them, because I want to give out cheese, I want to give out butter. But it is my understanding that we're in the stage of this program where we are gathering data. And we are looking at this data to really diagnose our need and what type of programs that we need to combat the violence in our community. There's another thing that is really simple, and you brushed it today, that I think that needs a lot more clarity, and that is the definition of a gang. I've had so many people to call me and tell me, Reverend, I think my son in a gang. What's the name of the gang? The Poo Poo Chain Gang. Ma'am, that ain't a gang. That's them and their partners, wannabes. And it replicates the actions that the kids do, simulate a gang, but if you really look at the definition of a gang, they're not a gang. I'm not saying it's not something that does not need to be dealt with, but it is something that needs to be educated to our community, because, and you guys have done a very good job of this, is going into these communities as a black male who would not know my daddy if he walked in that door right now. Fathers are very important. So this is personal to me. Children needs to be male kids. You can't just take something from them without giving them something in this return. And I know that transition is very delicate, but I'm very pleased. And Mayor, I'm very happy that both entities, city and county government, is not rushing this. We want to get this right. Thank you, Mr. King, for what you do. The sheriff is my cousin.
we have any other public comment?
No, sir.
All right. So, Mr. King, you want a couple final comments? Let's make it brief so we can move forward.
Yeah, I'll try to be really quick. So to Mr. Sims' point, really quick, we see groups, right? Gangs are the more really organized crime syndicates, if you will. And we see a lot of like smaller groups where it's 2 or 3, they're friends, they're from a neighborhood, and they identify as a group, and they do different activities collectively together, and sometimes those groups grow, but it's not as organized as a gang. And then the first part, and so the direct service that we provide is the life coaching, and that is going to be critical to the greater overall plan. And when we do these call-in meetings, having a person that is working directly with him to ensure that he doesn't end up back involved or down the negative path of violence. But the bigger part with the council is that unifier. And so in year 3 of our grant, we do have some funding for support services in our community. And so our big goal is to be able to bring all of those parties to the table who are doing this work and be able to do it together and then bring in those resources. We hear it all the time within the community, but what could we do if we had more, right? And so we're that bridge to assist us in this space of violence to bring more. And I know I verbally recognized them, but since the team stood, I wanted to allow our governing body members, our community body who keep us on task when sheriff is really kicking me. These are the people that kick me up. Not that he kicks me down, but when he's kicking me and AS is saying, this is what we need, here's the community body of people, and a few of them are here, and I wanted to at least allow them to be recognized to stand our governing body for the Council on Status Amendment Board.
Any of the members here?
I think it's 4 of them.
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you all.
All right, we do not have any recommended action tonight, but I will go ahead and entertain a motion just to accept the report as presented. But is there any discussion as well?
So moved.
Second.
Mayor.
Been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I see that the chair of the Charter Review Commission has been able to join us, so why don't we go back to item number 7.01, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the presentation of the report by the Charter Review Committee. Former Commissioner Muschin chaired that group. As you well know, you appointed that group in December. They began meeting in January and met diligently on a weekly basis and have concluded their work and brought forward the report that you asked. Obviously, we'll have Mr. Muschin as the chair present to you. You have an agenda item, and just as a heads up, we do have several speakers on the item when we get to that point.
Excellent. Mr. Muschin, thanks for your service chairing the commission.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to be here and to do this. As Mr. Cook stated, the committee met, I think, 8 or 9 times through January, February, March, and produced this report. As you will recall, that you, the commission, had directed this committee to specifically analyze and look at 4 specific items. So we did that. We've come back for recommendations on each of those 4. I think you have them there before you. I will just go through them briefly. The first was should the commission be, a number of commissioners be expanded? There was some confusion in the public about, there's this single-member districts, and we were like, no, this is just, the direction was, is there just more people on the commission? And the recommendation from the committee was not to expand it. There was another issue about should the salaries of the commissioners and mayor be considered for adjustment. And the majority of the committee felt like they should. I think there's information in your packet about sort of the method that I would say we, but I didn't vote for this, but the majority suggested that the commission should consider in that regard. There was the issue of if there are only 2 candidates for a commission seat, should that election be held in August or November, and the committee's recommendation is November. And then the last was, should the charter be reviewed on a regular basis? As currently, there's nothing in the charter that says that, and the committee recommended that it should, and I think we suggested some dates. There was discussion early on, well, can the committee recommend other things to the city commission? And so what we did was we said, well, let's get through the first 4, and then if, as long as we're here, we can make other recommendations. The commission's free to accept them or reject them. And so there were 2 that the committee came forth with. One was in terms of whether members of the commission, when they're serving on ex officio boards, are subject to the purview of the ethics committee. And the Charter Review Committee's recommendation was yes in that regard. And then there was another one that had more to do with a whistleblower. There was also a recommendation from the Charter Review Committee for approval with that. That was a closer vote on that one, but it was a recommendation to move forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I would tell you it was a very good committee, so congratulations to you for, I thought we worked very well together. People were thoughtful, respectful of each other's views. I think it was a good process. So, but happy to answer any questions. There's several committee members here. I saw Mr. Payne here, saw Commissioner Bryant. If there are others, raise your hands. Thank you. And I'll be quiet. And if you have any questions with me, happy to answer them.
Excellent. Are there any questions before we get to public comment? Clarifying questions. Let's go to public comment real quick.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Several speakers, as I said, on this item. The first is Dot Inman Johnson, followed by Peter Butzine. So Dot Inman Johnson. Oh,
Waves her time.
Waves her time. Then our next speaker is Peter Butzine, followed by Bernard Stevens.
Your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
Peter Butzine, 2358 Carefree Cove. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all on this issue. Our primary interest in reviewing the city charter has been to support the independent ethics board's recommendations that the charter be amended to address the gap in whistleblower protection. While the city provides such protections, they do not extend to complaints against the city auditor/inspector general or to the city commissioners. According to the city attorney, the only option to close this gap is to amend the charter. The issue has taken on even more significance after the legislature passed Senate Bill 7014, which is on its way to the governor's office for signature. If signed into law, this bill will essentially eviscerate enforcement of Florida's almost 50-year-old Sunshine Amendment. It will eviscerate the ethics codes embodied in Chapter 112, and it will eviscerate the more stringent ethics code that this city and this commission approved 2 or 3 years ago. If the governor signs the bill, the only people who will be able to bring forward ethics complaints are those willing to sign a statement swearing that they have personal knowledge and have personally witnessed corruption. It's unlikely they would do so without whistleblower protection. We face the absurdity of expecting one of the 2 sides engaged in corruption to submit a complaint. The outcome would make enforcement of the nefarious ethical behavior all but impossible. In conclusion, we strongly encourage you to support the Charter Review Committee's proposal regarding extending whistleblower protections. We also urge you to support the committee's proposed charter amendment clarifying that the Independent Ethics Board has jurisdiction over commissioners in their service on intergovernmental agencies such as Blueprint. At your December 13th meeting, Mayor Daley stated that, and this is a quote, if the CRC felt strongly enough on a particular topic and unanimously presented it to the City Commission, then we have a duty and a responsibility to take it under consideration, end quote. I emphasize that the recommendations regarding both whistleblower authority as well as jurisdiction over external boards were adopted by unanimous vote.
You're at 20 seconds.
These are 2 common sense charter amendments that should be put to a vote in November's election. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Bernard Stevens. Bernard Stevens and then Stanley Sims. Not
Mr.
seeing-
Stevens? Okay, we'll move on to Mr. Sims. Name and address for the record, please.
I'm Stanley Sims at 1320. My name is Stanley Sims. I want to really thank the members of the Charter Review Team for the work that they put in. I'm very proud. Our chairman, it went over smoother than what I expected. One thing did occur, Mr. Mayor, that I attended all of those meetings, and at every meeting, I objected to lobbyists, campaign managers being placed on that board. And this is the prime reason. Now, Mr. Jared Willis is an attorney on the bar, and Madam Attorney, you can straighten me if I'm wrong with this. The general public, us, we can just say anything, put it out there. But when you have a law degree, the bar requires a certain code of ethics. They don't want you going out lying. Because if somebody paid me to come to these meetings, I would be rolling up in here in a Lexus, Range Rover. Don't attack citizens when you have been placed into a position to help defend our democracy. Mr. Mayor, I really wish you would talk to your appointee about attacking your taxpayers. That's not professional. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I saw Mr. Stevens walk back in. Mr. Stevens, your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
All right, good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Reverend Bernard Michael Stevens, Jr., and my address is exempt. First of all, 7.1, this city charter. I'm so glad they voted not to uphold this thing with no 7 commissioners. I'm so grateful. I swear, I hope y'all hold that on too, right? But here's the thing where I'm confused at. What they did do is they want to give y'all a raise, right? They want to give you a raise. You shouldn't get no raise until you get these fighters what they need. And it take 3 of y'all to do that. Now, help me understand why we're going to sit here all day long and we're going to pass this and pass that and so move. Reese Gold make almost $300,000. He can't come to a decision. John Daly make $90,000. He can't come to a decision. Curtis Richardson, Diane Williams-Cox, everybody up here, they make below $50,000. They can come to a decision when it's convenient for them. Now, if the citizens run the city charter, when is it going to come in time where you're going to listen to the citizens? When is that going to happen? When do we really have a voice? How does that work? Where we going? What we doing? Reese Gold, how do you foster 4,000 employees plus? And the people who are the first ones on scene are neglected. You can't give them no money, but y'all want to line y'all pockets. You want to get your donors lining your campaigns. It's so fraudulent, it don't make no sense. And I was so happy to see Ms. Tolman at the meeting. Finally, she need to go to some of the meetings where Curtis Richardson giving the Urban League $100,000 every time. But yet instead, our city continues to hurt. Y'all sit up here and y'all want to gaslight people like we don't know what we're talking about. So I'm going to say this here, all right? You don't need no money until you think for these people that elected you in your seats. How hard is that? How hard is it for you to get them some money? And then that guy that came up here a couple of weeks ago, oh, you know, the legislator got this. Who paid that man? Who gave him that money to come in here and say, we're trying to get in negotiations? No, you're trying to keep turning the wheel. See, Ezekiel, he saw the wheel too, way up in the middle of a wheel. Now, to see, the problem is, Reese Gold, it's time for you to retire, bro. It's time to go. It's time for Curtis Richardson to get out of here too. What I want to see on that city charter is something where you run for office 8 years now. Y'all got to go. Diversity starts in the inside. It ain't your degrees, it ain't none of that. It's the different mindsets. When you gonna change that? The status quo is over. 61 years we've been hollering jobs and justice as blacks. Yet instead, we ain't got no justice. We still struggling for jobs. But yet, we got a whole bunch of problems when it comes down to money. Money, money, money. That's all y'all want, money. Citizens, I don't need your money to run for office. You ain't got to give me a dime. Not one dime.
Seconds.
All you got to do is vote me in there in Curtis' seat. I promise you we ain't going to have no problems because this city going to run according to a plan. John Daly, you the mayor, you the leader, the highest paid man. Get these firefighters their raise, my brother. And if not, you don't need one. I digress my time.
Our next speaker, please.
Mayor, that was the last speaker on item 7.01.
Excellent, sounds good. The action that's before us today, is to accept the final report of the 2024 Charter Review Committee and then schedule a discussion of the recommendations for the April 10th meeting. So that's just moving it down. I do have a point of clarification. Where's the chair? Or Mr. Cook? Mr. Mushing, you'll come back up. It was interesting during earlier testimony by Mr. Butson. He mentioned that this passed on a unanimous vote when dealing with the particular aspect with the whistleblower status. It is my understanding there was actually 2 votes that were taken, and that the first vote, it actually passed by 1 vote. It was a highly divisive vote. And then the commission went back to ratify the decisions, and that passed unanimously. Is that how the votes went down?
Well, I was not there at that meeting,
Sure.
Mr. Mayor. That was the last meeting, and so, but I think that's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Others that are here can correct.
Is Dr. Bryant here?
Vice Chair is here.
Dr. Bryant, will you please, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a very important issue that we need to clarify and make sure we have complete understanding. So, Dr. Bryant, again, thank you for your service. It's my understanding you served as the chair of this meeting in Mr. Mushing's absence. So was there, in fact, 2 votes that were taken on this particular item? And again, it's my understanding that the first vote barely passed by 1 vote. It was a decisive vote. And then it went back and y'all ratified them, and that passed unanimously.
The only point that you make it is that it was 2 votes instead of 1 when it passed the first time, 2 dissenting votes, but then there was a revote.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from our Inspector General and his position on that item, Mr. Mayor.
We could do that tonight, or we could do that on April 10th when we get into the meat of it. It is your disclosure. Do you want to do it now?
We'll do it April 10th.
Okay, sounds great.
That's good with me.
Mr. Mayor,
We'll just go down the line. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I wanted to thank the committee for the work that you did. I mean, volunteering your time, because we know that time is money and money is time. And we appreciate you doing what you did, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair, and all of you. And a special thanks to the 2 that I appointed. And I appreciate the time that you and effort that you put into it to make it what needed to be. The charter had not been looked at in 14 years. And so it was time to do that. And I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your effort, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and other members of the committee. Thank you.
I agree. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I just want to thank the committee members who put in the long hours to get us this recommendation. It's an unpaid volunteer position, and it truly is a service to the city of Tallahassee, so thank you. I've had positions previously on some of these items, particularly city commission pay. I too believe it's a non-starter to even discuss that with the ongoing fire negotiations, who many get paid less than we do already. You know, that being said, a recommendation was made, and I do think it is worthy of a hearing by the city commission to discuss it at the April 10th meeting. So I'll move that we schedule items on April 10th to review the items that were recommended to move forward by the Charter Review Committee.
There's a motion on the table made by Commissioner Matlow for the staff recommendations. There's a second to the motion.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Porter. Discussion on the motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I guess I need clarification. I thought we'd already stated that's what we were going to do on April 10th. I didn't realize we needed a motion to do that. I thought that was a timeline
Yeah, yes.
that we have already established.
Correct, and that's the motion that he just made, was we're moving everything to April 10th for discussion.
And my question is, why are we needing a motion to do that when we've already, I'm looking at Jim.
If I may, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Yeah, I think what we did is, or I know what we did is, in the agenda item, what we did is we knew that the committee would be presenting their report, wanted to have an action item for you to accept that report, sort of finalize the committee's work, and then you can have discussion here at any other time as you wish, but we wanted to be sure April 10th was scheduled for discussion. That was in the timeline that we laid out, but I don't know that we had specifically said that is the date for the discussion because we didn't know how the committee's timing would work exactly. So we wanted to be sure we specified that in this report so that you could then meet the other deadlines to get anything we need to the supervisor of elections.
That's what I needed clarification because I was thinking that it was already foregone that that's what we were going to be doing. Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And for the record, I am thoroughly looking forward to hearing what the Inspector General has to say as well. I heard it was an interesting meeting at the last meeting, and we're going to make sure that everything is entered into the record. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. We are back on 12.02. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me invite Angela Baldwin forward, just in case there are questions on this. I think this is a straightforward item, but it's one that creates some excitement. We're very much nearing the point of construction for our Southside Transit Center. This item seeks your approval to award and authorize the city manager and my designee to negotiate and execute a contract with HA Contracting Corp. Should that prove unsuccessful, we would ask you to allow us to move to the second bidder. This procurement was conducted as a bid, simply based on the scope and scale of this project. We asked for prices. We got those from two bidders. We were pleased with the results, that we did get two responsive bidders, and we feel very good about it. With this approval, we'll move to the next step. At your last meeting, you authorized us to accept a grant from the state of Florida, and we're also finalizing the grant details with the federal government for $15 million toward this particular project. And so we're getting very, very close to breaking ground at the site, which is located at Orange and Meridian. And this is one of the final steps. We ask for your approval on this, and Angela's here to answer any questions if you have them.
Wonderful. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
Mayor, I believe we have one speaker on item 12.02. That is actually two speakers on this item, Bernard Stevens and then Stanley Sims.
Okay. Sure, Mr. You seem to be the closest to the microphone. Your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Stanley Sims, and Commissioner Porter, my address is exempt. I just always wanted to say that when people say it. Angela, and I know this is not beyond your control. The minority businesses that participated in the Columbia Gardens apartments, matter of fact, Mr. Darrell Jones' city, those guys were really happy that they were able to get in on that project. I know 2 or 3 people who never been on a project of that size that was able to secure a job. And I'm just asking, Darrell got some, Mr. Jones, he has some very good tricks, maneuvers, and strategies to engage the people on the South Side, those small businesses. And so, and I'm not saying you're not doing that. Please don't take, I'm excited about this project. And the people are excited about this project. And I'm very thankful that you're not giving us a subsidized standard government-looking building. You're giving us something that will really add to the environment of that community, but also add to the chain of the people of that community, if at all possible. Thank you for the work you do for us.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
Hey, hey, hey. My name is Reverend Bernard Michael Stevens, Jr. I just want to say this. You know, y'all asked for this. Y'all asked for me. You know why? Because when y'all gave that proclamation out a couple of weeks ago, that song, all y'all stood up there, we want the funk. Woo, gotta have that funk. Oh, yeah, I'm finna give it to you too, right? So here we are, 12.02, Southside Bus Terminal. Man, the city is gonna give $3 million to match that from all of that federal money? $3 million, right? So here's where I'm confused at. Do we really need it? Yes or no? No, you know why? Ms. Baldwin over there, she done fired almost 20-something people for stuff that really don't even make sense. There's no training, there's no development over there, there's just simple termination. You all get rid of employees for nothing. You don't train them, you don't develop them. You know who I fought? The head man, the city manager. Because if you had a program designed to help your employees when they come to work, the young man that was on the city golf cart that fell asleep, he would have never got fired. But he did get fired, an elderly man. He got fired. The South Side does not need that. What the South Side needs, it needs 2 new leaders to be over there to speak for our community, and not these individuals who swear they know it, who are members of 2 of Tallahassee's largest churches, right? And they got a lot of political influence from individuals outside of that, right? So we're spending money, but the CK Steel Plaza still look like it looked. And all they're doing over there is playing with the sidewalk, cutting it up. So if you trying to take CK Steel out of there because Tennessee Street finna have a whole new look, just go ahead and say that for the people. But if not, why Mr. Reverend CK Steel Plaza still look like it look? Why the bathrooms still stinking the inside? Why the bus drivers ain't friendly over there? Y'all give all these praises to all your people, but you don't even ride public transportation. You have no idea when you get on the public transportation on the city bus, some of them drivers don't even speak. Where you do all that stuff at? These are the leaders that y'all have. These leaders are just, they're not leaders. We can't keep spending money on building because every time we sit there and we try to build something, y'all think that's the right thing to do. Invest in the people who are already employed. The city's already got problems with the little bus route because the seniors don't never get picked up on time. They always waiting on dollar ride to come pick them up. Yellow cab still slow. Y'all got a whole lot of policy malfeasance going on in that too. And I'm gonna get down to the bottom of it. But speaking of which, I done asked y'all 3 for a meeting. I've yet to got it. Now, when I get to my unagenda speakers, I got to talk about my incident. I came in here on March of last year to tell y'all about the Tallahassee Police Department, and you yet to do something. Now, the status men council boards, they came in here the same time because the sheriff was here, and he seemed to got answer, but I can't. And the only person who was able to talk to me throughout that whole encounter was Sister Porter. She came and met me at the coffee shop, and we had great time. But y'all folks still ain't got back with me. I don't understand that. Okay, so I vote no. All right, no, we don't need that.
Thank you very much for your time. Our next speaker, please.
No additional speakers.
Excellent. Ms. Baldwin, isn't it actually accurate that we are about to completely renovate CK Steel Plaza? And since we have moved the Greyhound bus station across the street, it is going to be absolutely dynamic with the finished product. So as we move forward with the investment, both on Orange Avenue, we're going to see tremendous transformation at CK Steel Plaza as well.
Absolutely. We're in the process of doing some major renovations at CK Steel Plaza, including just changing some of the ambiance there, as well as enhancing the audio systems and some other additional changes there at CK Steel Plaza. So absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're doing an amazing job, and I appreciate that. We just need to make sure that the misinformation doesn't stay on the record and that we correct it when we can. Thank you. Okay. So do we have a motion on the table for It's been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion on this great agenda item? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And it passes unanimously 5-0. We are on item number 12.03. Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We're seeking the City Commission's approval for Thomasville Road intersection and concurrency agreement involving the PUD at Ox Bottom and Thomasville Road. The agreement of this item outlines the terms and conditions to allow for completion of planned improvements in the area of Thomasville Road, Veldadary Road, and Ox Bottom Road. These improvements include the extension of Veldadary Road to cross Thomasville Road and tie into Ox Bottom Road, in addition to the signalization of Belvedere and Thomasville Road intersection and the construction of a stormwater treatment pond. The agreement includes concurrency credit for the developer of the Ox Bottom Meadows Plan Unit development in exchange for the land and stormwater work that's needed to accommodate the road extension. Growth Management Director John Reddick is here to answer questions, but we also need to make one correction on the record. John, if you can clarify the owner's name that's to be included in the agreement that's attached to the agenda material.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Mayor and Commissioners, the attachment in the agenda item for the agreement currently states that the entity will be Ox Bottom Thomasville LLC. That will actually be Meadows TLH Commercial LLC.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Any questions, clarification before we move to public comment? Let's go to public comment. Mr. Clerk.
Robert Volpe is here to answer questions if you have them, otherwise no speakers.
Okay.
Staff recommendation, option number 1.
Second.
Mayor.
Option number 1 has been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1 with Commissioner Porter in dissent. We're on item 12.04.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Manager.
Mr. Mayor, let me ask Tony Guillen, our General Manager of Electric and Gas, and Michael Olson, our Clean Energy Plan Manager, to come forward. Michael has a brief presentation. This item seeks your approval to submit 2 grant applications for projects totaling nearly $60 million, a little in excess of $60 million. While I believe these are somewhat long shots, I think a lot of these grants that we do are, because it's very competitive. We have the opportunity to apply. We've, as an organization, been very aggressive. We just talked about our Star Metro grant at Southside. And so we've been somewhat successful even despite long odds. And I think this particular application holds great promise, and I'd love for Michael to summarize it for us.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager, Mayor, Commissioners. Just briefly, I'm here just seeking approval to pursue 2 grants through the U.S. Department of Energy, as City Manager mentioned, both of which support our transition to clean energy while continuing to build out a more resilient grid. What's exciting about both is that at the core of these projects are utility scale battery energy storage systems. That's a little bit of a mouthful, but it's basically big batteries that act as mini power plants. They're clean, emission-free, relatively quiet, but they provide an operational flexibility that we need to enable more solar on our system down the road. And since these will represent our first 2 large batteries on our system, we've expanded our team to include members of Florida State University's Center for Advanced Power Systems and their Ryder Center, which is a resilience infrastructure and demand, or rather disaster response center. In addition, we've expanded the team to include industry members, Siemens Energy, as well as WeatherStream and members of Georgia Tech. So quickly, the 2 projects. First one is anchored at Substation 2. This serves the Griffin Heights neighborhood, surrounding Frenchtown areas. This is largely an infrastructure upgrade project. So in addition to the large battery storage system, we're going to do a number of things to basically automate the distribution system, adding reclosers, capacitors, sectionalizers to essentially reduce the number of outages that are experienced in this area. This particular project clocks in at about $40 million, of which the grant would cover 75%. The other projects on the south side of town, stationed at Substation 11, which serves some communities on south side, as well as critical infrastructure such as our airport, wastewater treatment plant. What makes this site interesting too is it's where our solar farm connects. And so on this project, we're going to be advancing the state of power electronics and working with researchers at FSU, Georgia Tech, and through Siemens Energy to prove the mechanics of solar and storage systems. This one comes in at $26 million, of which from our federal grant and partner match, they'll cover upwards of 65% of those projects. That's just a quick overview of the two. Both applications are due in mid-April. Quick shout out to the masterminds behind these projects, my colleagues back in the utility, Caleb Crow, Sydney Usatine, Aaron Bresnick, Thomas Yoon, and Mark Rodriguez. They're the ones responsible for pulling these together. The next step, seeking your approval, this item includes 2 resolutions that, if adopted, simply allows us to press forward, submit these applications, and if selected for award, negotiate those terms, appropriate funding, move forward. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
Excellent. All right, colleagues.
Move adoption of our option to proceed to apply for this free money.
Okay.
Second, Mr.
Been probably moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox. I believe Commissioner Porter seconded the motion. Mayor Pro Tem, you are
Thank you.
recognized.
I just wanted to say, Mr. Mayor, that I am ecstatic that we have staff that not only is being creative in terms of bringing projects like this forward and seeking the funding, but also addressing issues in those neighborhoods that have traditionally been neglected in our community, including the Griffin Heights and South City neighborhoods. And so I thank you all for making that. Hopefully we'll make it happen. Right. But not only bringing that amenity to the South Side, but modernizing those areas as well in terms of energy use. And so thank you all for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. City Manager, for your leadership in that, and let's hope that the money comes through. But thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. I too want to say thanks. It is no secret that we produce more solar electricity per capita than any other community, I believe, in the United States of America. And it is no secret that we have the #1 public utility peer reviewed. And I am very proud of the hard work that y'all do. But we also know that we're only as good as technology. I am incredibly excited to see the concentration on battery storage, because we could build as many solar farms as we could possibly imagine, but if we cannot store the energy with the most up-to-date technology, then what good are we? Right. So it's great to see y'all thinking creatively on how to expand the grid, harden the grid, make it more resilient, and stay in lines with the goals that we have and continue to be #1 in the nation.
Sure.
I'm very proud to be able to support this. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Thank you. Mr. Manager, we're on item number 12.05.
Yes, sir. Let me ask Dave Roberts, Assistant General Manager of Underground Utilities and Public Infrastructure Department, to come forward. As he comes forward, I'd like him to make a brief presentation. This one is similar to the one we just discussed, but we've now been awarded the money. It is in the form of a loan, half of which can be forgivable and result in a grant. This is from DEP, our state DEP. And so we've been successful. We're at the point now needing to finalize that agreement. Dave, if you don't mind, please provide an overview of what this will entail and what we'll be able to do with it.
Sure. This is about our water system. And as you all know, our water system has been repeatedly ranked among the best in Florida and in the U.S. for that matter. And it's because of the high-quality water supply we have and the hard work that the people and the professionals put into that every day to make sure that happens. Over the last several years, we've obviously demonstrated our resiliency and reliability of our water system through some of these extreme weather events. And our staff is proactive when it comes to legislative issues and opportunities for funding, and that's what this is, an opportunity for funding. So I won't go through the details of the timeline, but essentially where we are at this point is at the decision to apply for, to execute an agreement with SRF. We were originally awarded or prioritized to receive $9 million when we applied for that per your direction back in October. And in February, we were acknowledged to receive that money and also to receive an additional 10%. So they really want us to have this, which is fantastic. So we're talking about $10 million in funding
I won't go through the details on the service lines and that information at this point. This is about water quality compliance and meeting new rules and regulations. And those rules and regulations tend to stem from the water service lines. And those water service lines are not just those owned by the city, but also those owned by our customers. And so this money will go towards continuing to identify our service lines and understand what those materials are and those contributions to water quality. It will also help us assist homeowners in identifying their plumbing materials so that they can identify the contributions to water quality within their homes. And then the other aspects are publicly facing inventories, additional sampling and community outreach programs, and an obligation to continually update that inventory in the future. And while this says this is a loan and not a grant, 49% of that $10 million is forgivable. So nearly $5 million of that is free money. The remaining 51% is, is at a 0% interest over a 10-year period from the completion of the project. So it's interest-free at that point. And so it is our recommendation that you authorize the city manager through this resolution to execute that funding agreement.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
Excellent.
Move staff
Second.
It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem for staff recommendation. It's been seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Any further comment? Dave, once again, you and your department are nationally recognized for its excellence. I think sometimes we take our drinking water for granted here. And the fact that year after year after year, we win the blind taste test for the best drinking water and tasting drinking water in the state of Florida. You know, it wasn't that long ago where you look at other communities across the United States where the infrastructure was literally making their population sick, if not killing them.
Indeed.
And again, we don't worry about that here because you all do a tremendous job. Thank you very much. We appreciate it and look forward to supporting the motion on the table.
Thank you for the recognition.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Mr. Manager, do we have anything else come before us before policy formation and direction?
No, sir.
Colleagues, we got about 22 minutes before we break. What I'd like to do is knock out the sharing of ideas now, because I am concerned that if we start with unagended speakers, I will be criticized for picking winners or losers of who has to wait until afterwards that we don't get to before the public hearing. So with that, Commissioner Porter, we'll start with you with the sharing of ideas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We received an update on the issue of the Capital City Country Club unmarked grave sites in May of 2021. I believe there was a committee, and this sort of started before my time on the commission, but I was wondering if we could, I wanted to make a motion that we have that come back to us with an update of what progress we've made based on the committee's findings and recommendations.
Motion's been made to bring the item back.
Second.
Seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. Commissioner Porter, you have the floor.
Thank you. And I just want, two more items. I wanted to ask, Mr. Manager, do we have a date on when we're going to have an item come back to us with an update on the Northwood Mall? We gave that direction a few weeks ago, and I'm wondering if we have a date in mind. Some people have followed up about that.
Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, our date right now is April 24th.
Okay.
We'll bring a full update. I think that'll be good timing relative to reaching 60% design and being able to give you a full comprehensive look at the status of the Northwood Mall, but in particular the police station itself.
Okay, thank you. And my final item, I'm not prepared to make a motion right now because it relates to the ADU, the public hearing, but we did receive, ATN made some recommendations and had some suggestions about options we may have as far as, tracking how the ADUs are used that seem to be legal under state law currently. And so that's something that I wanted to discuss, but I'm not going to make a motion right now, but if it's appropriate, I might make it at the time, if that's okay with you,
Yeah,
Mr.
well,
Mayor.
we will discuss that at the public hearing.
Thank you, that's all for me.
Great. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I want to recognize, since our last meeting, we had a significant fire on Pensacola Street, and I wanted to express my gratitude for the members of the Tallahassee Fire Department who weren't scheduled but came in off shift to serve our community and fight that blaze. Look, I know we've struggled a lot publicly with how we support our frontline workers. We've recently seen the resignation of multiple people, citing particularly the tone at the top, driving them from our department. And I think that is unfortunate. I think we can do better. I know we can afford to do better. But I did have an opportunity this morning to watch the live stream of the mediation. And I want to thank all of the city staff that participated in that, because I received more information as an elected official over what's on the table and what it costs and what the impacts are than I ever have in the last year of negotiations for management. So I think watching that mediation, I finally have a very clear picture in my mind of where we are, what we're offering, and what the firefighters are offering. And I think we need to do a better job of not just educating the public, but making sure the commissioners are aware of what we're discussing. I've expressed my concern previously that we've only had 2 executive sessions when our negotiators met with the firefighters over 20 times. I don't think that more regular updates are absolutely necessary as we move forward with these conversations and negotiations. My understanding is, since our last meeting, the firefighters have put a new offer on the table. I haven't seen that. Mr. Manager, I was wondering, are we going to have an executive session to be able to review the latest offer?
Yeah, we're in mediation.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to, it probably would be helpful if I describe where we're in the process.
Okay.
If y'all would like.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So I think it's known that, but if not, I think it's probably helpful. Where we are in the discussion we're having is related to a 1-year agreement involving this fiscal year that ends September 30th, began October 1 of 2023. That was the direction that we negotiated with the union. Now, keep in mind, this is a negotiation with the union. It's very structured. It's done in accordance with state law that the negotiation cannot happen with the members of the department, unlike how we set salaries in most of our jobs. It has to happen through the union. So in this case, it has traveled to a point where the union said, we believe impasse is the proper method for the 1-year agreement, and that we would invoke a special magistrate. So that's what happened today. You alluded to it earlier, Commissioner. The magistrate, much like a judge, takes testimony. They hear facts. They hear evidence. It's presented by both sides. He can, in this case, it's he considers the information. He's not a member of the Tallahassee community. He lives elsewhere. And so he simply reviews the data and the details and makes a recommendation. And so that's where we are in this particular process related to a 1-year agreement. At the same time, we've begun negotiating a 3-year agreement that would begin October 1 of 2024 and last for 3 years conceptually. We have our second negotiating session scheduled for tomorrow. The first negotiating session was 2 weeks ago or so, and largely that covered ground rules only. There was no apparent urgency of having to reach that agreement immediately, and so those 2 things are happening simultaneous. Yesterday, I did see it in the news, probably like you saw it, is that there was an offer. I think it was, I don't remember the term used because the offers have to happen in negotiation. Clearly, that didn't happen in negotiation. There was an offer that was greater than any of the requests of the fire union to date. So it exceeded even what's being considered by the magistrate, and it won't be introduced in that process. The magistrate will consider, the things that have been discussed and what each party put together. So there's no real action on that. I personally don't need an executive session for that direction.
Right.
We are negotiating the 3-year. We'll see how that unfolds. It's very possible that we will have executive sessions during the course of that process. We're not at that point yet as we're entering the early stages of it.
Excellent. On point, sure, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, just to have either the attorney or the city manager clarify the role of the city commission in the collective bargaining process.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think
Sure.
I think I'm probably best to answer that, Amy, if you wish to weigh in. The state law actually assigns the roles on this. This is not even something that's done locally. So this is a union negotiation, not unique to negotiating with a fire department or any other kind of union. It involves organized labor in the state of Florida. The state designates the city manager, in this case, is the chief negotiator. So the city manager executes the negotiation. You act as the legislative body, and then you act on, potential votes or actions. In this case, I think we know that the union also represents the members. The union has not presented the members the agreement to vote on because that's their prerogative. The union doesn't have to do that, so they represent the members. And so, as you know, in executive session, those are closed door, not subject to the public. That's where discussion happens and general direction is provided in terms of updates. But it's not where you as the legislative body act upon those agreements. And I think there has been a lot of discussion and confusion around that.
There has been.
So as the legislative body, it could be that you reach a point where you sit in as quasi-judicial. And so your role is very particular. You're not negotiating the agreements. There's been a suggestion that 3 of you could vote to direct an agreement. In fact, that is absolutely disallowed by the bargaining agreement that we have itself. It forbids commissioners from negotiating the contract, and it does for good purpose. In this case, as I mentioned earlier, we have reached the point where we're working with a special magistrate. That's a process entirely envisioned by the state law. Yeah. Right. These contract negotiations don't go on forever. They will reach finality, and so to the extent you can't quite reach common ground and maybe maybe things aren't reaching an end, there's a means to that, and that's where we are. I mentioned earlier the magistrate's not from here. He's acting, for all intents and purposes, as an administrative law judge, just hearing evidence to make a good recommendation. So there is means to get to an end, and that's where we find ourselves in this process.
Excellent. Commissioner Matlow, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm not sure we're speaking about the same thing. So, Mr. Manager, for clarity, why do we have executive sessions?
Sure. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, and the city attorney can weigh in if she would like. The executive sessions are information sharing sessions. Right. In fact, as you know, they're confidential in nature. They're not to be shared outside that room, and it's an opportunity to discuss the matter, get feedback on the matter, and to the extent that I'm designated as the chief negotiator, for me to seek clarity that the commission would like me to have. That's what they are. Votes are not involved, and information is not passed from you to me in those sessions.
Madam Attorney, you want to weigh in?
I do just want to add just a little bit to the remainder of the impasse process, which Reese alluded to, is that after the special magistrate considers the testimony and evidence that he heard today, there will be a recommended order issued. The recommended order will come back to the negotiating parties, and if either side objects or rejects any of the findings of the recommended order, that is when the recommended order comes back to the City Commission, and at that point, the City Commission is acting in a quasi-judicial capacity to make a determination about the recommended order. So it's important to keep that in mind, that at some point, the legislative, your legislative role could, depending on how it evolves, could turn into a quasi-judicial role. So it's important to remember that in any discussions that you have about the process leading up to that.
Commissioner Matlow, you still have the floor.
Thank you. For clarity on that point, if the manager and the union come to an agreement in advance of the special magistrate, could they move forward with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. So Back to why I was asking about executive sessions, there's a very important reason we have. One, we don't have to have these discussions publicly. Two, the elected officials who are in charge of the budget of the city of Tallahassee know what's being negotiated, knows what the position is to make sure we're working in tandem as one city to a deal that will ultimately be accomplished by the city of Tallahassee. The reason I believe we need more executive sessions is because the information shared publicly today as an elected official of the city was the first time I've been able to hear any of those numbers. And that's very concerning as an elected official here, knowing that there have been multiple requests for dollars and cents of what we are discussing. So what I'm asking for us is to have an executive session so we can discuss the budget impacts of the offer the city is offering, as well as what the firefighters are offering for our information, so we don't have to have a public hash out. The entire reason we go into executive sessions because the union should not know everything that the city's position is, but I feel very much left out of the process, the cost, and to have multiple members of our staff in a public meeting today giving information to a special magistrate that the city commission has never gotten is offensive. And I'm asking for us to have an executive session to discuss it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, may I respond?
Well, I'm just going to move on to Commissioner Williams-Cox. That's okay. All right, Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. City Manager. And you know what I say. I learn what I learn from my briefings and the questions that I ask. So I'm aware.
Right.
But I'd like to move on. Mr. Mayor and Mr. City Manager, I'd like to ask that our city manager be granted the authorization to move forward with the renaming of Wanish Way from FAMU Way to Bragg Drive, where it dead ends, to use whatever methods we have available to us to make that happen. We sent it over to the county commission, and somehow it didn't happen. And so I've heard from the FAMU community, we have some in the audience today, that the full intent is that Wanish Way be renamed for Althea Gibson, and it be named Althea Gibson Way as quickly as possible. The goal was to try to have it done during this month of Women's History Month, because she is a woman who made great history in our country. And FAMU, the FAMU family, alumni, and supporters wanted to do this in her honor during the month of March, but that did not happen. And so I want to see if we can get the city manager to do whatever is necessary to make sure that this happens this time.
But take the necessary steps to rename the road. I will second that motion.
I'd second it.
Any other discussion? I agree. I think we're at an interesting point right now when you have a unanimous decision, not only by the board of directors of FAMU, but from the city of Tallahassee, and you have an individual that can slow things up for political reasons at the county. I think it's time for us to reevaluate that situation and that we move forward in conjunction with FAMU and we rename the road. Commissioner Matlow, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, Madam Attorney, can we just have clarity on what our ability to do that is? Has that always been our purview to rename roads?
Mr. Mayor.
Madam Attorney and then Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, the city's ordinance requires or gives the authority to name roads to the county. And then the county's code in turn says that street naming functions by other entities within the county is prohibited. If the city commission wants to rename this road, we will need to amend our ordinance to make it possible for us to rename all roads within the city.
Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, if I can, in this particular case, I think I can highlight the steps and that'll help. That was an ordinance for convenience. Statutorily, the city has the right to rename its roads, and so we can simply make that adjustment. In this case, much work has already been done. You voted as a body to send it to the county as historically contemplated to finalize that process. A step in that is for the staff to, which includes city staff, by the way, an addressing committee that sits and evaluates the appropriateness and to ensure that there's no confusion for public safety, that the names of the roads comport with length and ability to put them on signs, the designation of drive and way, and there's there's a variety of things they've considered. That's been done, so that's already happened. And also, if with your direction tonight, based on your motion, I'll direct staff to go ahead and inventory the signs that need to be changed, gather the materials, begin the production, and while that's happening, we can move through the ordinance change process, and so you won't lose any ground. It could certainly happen, and that would encompass all of Wanish Way, which is a combination of city ownership and FAMU control of the portion on their campus. So it's bookended by the city. The southernmost point is Bragg, all the way to FAMU is Wanish. So certainly can be done. The addressing, the public safety piece has already been cleared. And that's how, in this case, I think that would work.
Excellent. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Manager. So just for clarity, we'd be changing the ordinance to give us the ability to rename city-owned roads without having to go through the county?
Absolutely. If that's the necessary step and that needs to come back, absolutely.
Okay. I'm in support. I just wanted that clarity.
Excellent. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes 5-0. Commissioner Williams-Cox, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And FAMU, thank you for your patience and thank you for your support. The next thing, Mr. Mayor, is my understanding that we need to appoint someone to our ethics board, independent ethics board. And I'd like to nominate Brian Smith to fill that slot for the City of Tallahassee. His application has been received, and he is someone who has served in that capacity for another entity and served with accommodations and has been away from the board for a few years and has an interest of returning. And I'd like to nominate him for that and hope that, make the motion that he be appointed to the Independent Ethics Board.
All right, there is a motion and a second. Commissioner Porter, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just ask, we had this conversation, I believe, at our last meeting that the city advertise a little more, that we get more applicants. So I really would prefer that this come back to us like we typically make appointments, especially since this is an incredibly important appointment to, of course, to us, but to the community. I don't know this person, so this is not personal at all against Mr. Smith, but I don't think this is the proper forum to make an appointment like that. So I would really appreciate the opportunity that this come back to us, as we discussed, I believe, at our last meeting.
Sure. For the record, I think Mr. Smith was FAMU's appointment to the Ethics Review Board,
Previously.
Board previously for several years, and served with distinction, rolled off, and has recently submitted his name once again. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I haven't seen the application. I would just ask that we bring it back April 10th for approval so I can review the application in advance.
Okay, any other comment? There is an actual motion on the table right now.
I'll make a substitute motion that we bring back Mr. Brian Smith's application for approval at the April 10th meeting.
Okay, there's a substitute motion to bring back Mr. Smith for ratification at the April 10th meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Porter. All those in favor of the substitute motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
And it fails 3-2 with Commissioner Williams-Cox, the Mayor Pro Tem, and the Mayor in dissent. We're back on the original motion. Commissioner Porter for comment.
You know, I'm just wondering why this couldn't wait. You know, it really is confusing to me that working as a collegial body, I do my best when there are issues that I might not feel super strongly about, but I know my colleagues care about, in supporting a second and supporting those motions and efforts. And I really feel, I just need to express how disrespected I feel on a consistent basis, that when some of us, or I'll speak for myself, I ask for what really feels like so little, that we wait for, this is nothing about Mr. Smith, that we wait a month so that the public can review, weigh in, so that 2 of your colleagues can review this person's application. And we're supporting, we're supporting the appointment, and we're just asking for an opportunity to review this application. That we can't get that consideration is incredibly disappointing.
So the motion on the table is for the appointment. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
And it passes 4-1 with Commissioner Matlow in dissent.
Nay.
Oh, I'm sorry, nay?
Yes.
Okay. Passes 3-2 with Commissioner Porter and Commissioner Matlow in dissent. Okay, you have the floor, Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Great, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to take this opportunity to again clarify my position with the unions and with my support of what they do in this community. I said at the last meeting, I have fully supported employee unions for years. I'm from a union family, y'all. My wife worked for the State Teachers Union for 18 years. I was a member of the United Faculty of Florida during my time with the University of West Florida. I negotiated for the Gadsden County School District when I was an employee for the district. So I've been on both sides of the issue. I have been honored to have the support of the firefighters union in every election that I have run in because of my support for them. And I don't think there's any argument that that support has been there, or I wouldn't have had those endorsements during each election that I ran. I fully support the work that our men and women of the Tallahassee Fire Department do on a daily basis. I hear the sirens go by my house constantly from the fire station on South Monroe. Absolutely. My wife and I were involved in an accident where our car was totaled, and I was damn glad that the firefighters showed up with an MT on board of that fire truck. I was glad of that. I advocated for Fire Station 17 on Lake Bradford Road when I came to this commission, because in reviewing the report on the fire services fee, it came to me immediately that the area where I live, by the way, on the south side of town, that there were more calls for service and a greater length of time to arrive on the scene of a fire in that area. And there was a recommendation for a fire station on Lake Bradford Road, and I advocated for that fire station. My support has not been word of mouth. It has been in action. I continue to support the union. I continue to support our firefighters and what they do to keep this community safe. That's my position. I've had it, I've demonstrated it, and I just want to make that abundantly clear to those that are here today and those that might be watching. So anybody that tries to make me the enemy of the union, it doesn't work. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we stand in recess till 6 o'clock. I apologize. It is 6:04. I'd like to call the public hearing to order. We are on item number 1401. Madam Attorney, introduce an item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 14.01 is the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 24-0-03, I'm sorry, -0-03, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida concerning accessory dwelling units, amending Chapters 1 and 10 of the Tallahassee Land Development Code, providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, conduct the public hearing and adopt ordinance number 24-0-03.
Excellent. Mr. Cook, walk us through the public comments on this, please.
Mayor, we will have 2 speakers on this public hearing item. As with the other portion of our meeting, speakers will have 3 minutes for comments with a green light in front of the mayor that will turn yellow at 30 seconds remaining, at which time I'll also give you a heads up before your time expires at 3. Our first speaker is Taylor Jones. Taylor Jones will be followed by Jake Kiker.
Thank you for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you for the chance to speak. My name is Taylor Jones, and my address is 4541 Hickory Forest Circle. Good evening. I would like to begin by thanking the Commission for their consideration of this ordinance. The shortage of affordable housing has become a national crisis, which we are experiencing locally. Tallahassee not only boasts the poorest zip code in the state, but by some accounts is the most economically segregated city in the country. Luckily, ADUs offer an affordable, more expedient means to address these issues than traditional single-family housing alone. Not only are ADUs cheaper and faster to construct, they offer homeowners flexibility, passive income, and the path to building wealth in their own backyards. However, while this ordinance would represent a productive step forward for the city in addressing the housing crisis, in its current form, it falls short of unlocking most of the benefits which ADUs offer. The existing language, while nominally allowing for an expansion in the number of ADUs in theory, in practice permits mostly just attached ADUs, such as attic, basement, and garage apartments. Many of the detached ADUs assumed to be permitted, such as detached garage apartments, granny flats, and mother-in-law suites, would essentially be prohibited in many smaller lots due to the application of primary structure setback requirements to ADUs. Fortunately, a simple amendment to the language to apply accessory structure setback requirements to detached ADUs could resolve this issue and further expand community access to the economic benefits of ADUs. In its current form, there are elements of exclusionary zoning practices which are being carried over to this new ordinance. If we are to work towards the common goal of eliminating economic segregation in our city, this language should be amended. I humbly request that this commission please approve this ordinance with the change that detached ADUs are subject to accessory structure setback requirements rather than primary structure setback requirements. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Jake Kiker, and then Mark Chandler.
Your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Jake Kiker. Address is 222 Oakland Avenue. First off, the first speaker had some good points. I don't disagree with them. However, the last time I spoke on this matter, we were already asking for more. I think at this juncture, I'd love to see us jog before we try to sprint. I think this is an amazing opportunity, and I think that the staff has done a great job. I cannot say enough about how responsive, first of all, Ms. Javonville and certainly Mr. Reddick and Dylan Haas within Growth Management have been in getting this to where it's at today. I'm very, very pleased. And again, I think it's been a great example of staff working collaboratively with the citizens on a problem. And I can't wait to see us start implementing this solution.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Mark Chandler, and then Jeremy Floyd is the last speaker I have on the item.
Great. Thanks for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Mark Chandler. I live at 214 West 4th Avenue, and I'm here to speak in favor of this amendment. And, I saw the article in the newspaper today. I thought it was a good idea and thought I'd show my support. I think it will make density will be a good outcome for Tallahassee. This will where it's at. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Jeremy Floyd.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Good evening. Floyd, 1308 Conservancy. Just basically here to ask you to accept and approve this item as presented. Most of you know me, but just for a little refresher, if not, I'm a landscape architect here in Tallahassee, 25 years experience, 15 in the private sector, 10 in the public sector, helping build and lead your design work studio and your planning department to what it is today. And now I'm back in the private sector. So I spent my entire career drawing, doing urban design, developing every type of scenario to just about every zoning code you guys have on the books. And so with that experience, I want to say that your staff has done an outstanding job. Everybody in growth management, planning, special projects, communications, and management here. So one thing I really ask you guys to do is trust and support your staff. They've done an outstanding job on it. You know, this is a great work by them. My next point is this already exists in current form. A lot of non-conforming uses, things like that. This is nothing new that community already doesn't have. Next point on that is, you know, we hear the priorities you guys say all the time. You need more affordable housing, more attainable housing for buyers, renters. You want to reduce sprawl, have less of this, clear cutting, mass grading. You want to take pressure off canopy roads, reduce pressure on infrastructure. All these types of things. This ordinance helps achieve that. This helps achieve that. I mean, you look at everything from, your higher return on your public investment, all those types of things. So with that, what I'd like to do is just, basically just accept this as it is. It helps achieve all these things. This helps everyone. This is a win for all Tallahasseans, a win for all Tallahasseans. There's no downside to this. So this should be a very easy, very short discussion. This should be a unanimous 5-0 vote. So I'm asking you guys to come together as a team and vote and approve this. Thank you very much for your time.
Jeremy, is this your first time testifying as a private citizen? After all those years of being staff coming up, does it feel any different up there? Good. Thank you. Any other speakers?
No, sir.
All right. Let's open it up for discussion.
Move staff recommendation, option number 1.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Real quick, Mr. Reddick, there were some concerns that were addressed early on. I was wondering if you'll take a second just to give an overview and maybe some comment on some of the concerns that were addressed too.
Certainly, and I'd say the first one to touch on that I believe was mentioned when this was introduced is concern with short-term rentals, what impact this may have on it. I would, in our staff's view on this, is that the flexibility of what a short-term rental can be in terms of whether it be a primary residence, whether it be a bedroom, a pool house, this change and with the way that we already allow for accessory dwelling units where someone could build one today at 800 square feet and rent it out as a short-term rental, this isn't unlocking some new avenue to be able to utilize that. We view that as especially with the level to which we are preempted already by the state for short-term rental regulation. In our drafting of this, it is purely on increasing the number of these that can be put into our community, and that is not a consideration because of how it stands as an entirely separate independent item. The other item that's been referenced is the ability to make these actually affordable and make sure perhaps those who don't have the initial means to construct these to be able to have an avenue to do so. I will say that Dr. Thomas's team in Housing and Community Resilience is engaged with Florida Housing Coalition, pursuing some technical assistance to look at actual programming in place, state and nationwide, to incentivize these to actually get, for those who may want to build one and actually be incentivized to do it and lock it in as a certified affordable unit, what steps can be taken to do that as well.
All right, thank you. All right, any discussion, comments? Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to everyone who worked on bringing this back. I wondered if you would speak, we've actually probably heard both sides of this, and I'm going to support this as it stands today, but on the setback requirements for accessories, as well as, we've heard concerns that from some people who think, variances will just be issued, a lot of variances will be issued and would essentially put it in their backyard or at their property line. Can you speak to those types of concerns?
Sure. So separately, in terms of the setback issue, and again, that's one path that we take. That communities do a variety of things, but in doing that, in keeping it within the principal structure setback area, which in general is more restrictive than, say, a shed, what we're talking about is a fully occupiable unit. And so that helps limit any concerns of, say, privacy that adjacent property owners may have. So that's our goal there. And I would say in the areas where currently we see these the most, but also where they may be prioritized, certainly our current code prioritizes it, is within that multimodal transportation district. And within that overlay, we already have reduced setbacks as an incentive to make it easier to build on smaller lots. So you build houses, build duplexes, things like that. So we already have a means in place that in that large, 18 square mile area where we want to see them, especially to be able to have the flexibility to fit them on the lot. Forgive me, Commissioner, the second item you were asking about.
They were kind of the same issue, so I think that answered both okay. questions of whether you change it for detached ADUs. The flip side of it is the concern of how close to your property it'll be. So I think that answers both. I think Mr. Floyd actually spoke to most of the benefits and the reasoning behind the increased density, particularly the savings on public infrastructure that already exists. and environmental protections. We've heard the short-term rental concerns, which I think is a very valid concern. We are limited on it. I do think it's worth in 1 year coming back and reviewing, seeing how they're being implemented, where they're being implemented, seeing if it's successful and who's using it and taking advantage of it to see if we can improve the program after that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Any other comments, questions? Commissioner Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I intend to support this as well. I would like to ask, can I, after this motion, can I follow up with the motion that I wanted to make regarding ATN's recommendation? Thank you.
All right, all those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. Commissioner Porter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One thing that was brought to my attention by ATN is that a Senate Bill 280 passed, which gives cities the ability to implement vacation rental registration programs. That would give us the ability to know where they are, how the ADUs or how it's just generally being used. And I'm wondering, I wanted to make a motion that we bring that back for discussion. What we're allowed to do by law, and if that's something that we want to pursue. It's something that we hear a lot about from the community, and in most ways our hands are tied as far as regulating them, but knowing where they are is something that I think could be useful information for us. And so I'd like to make a motion that we bring back an informational item on vacation rental registration programs and what for discussion.
Motion on table made by Commissioner Porter to bring back an information item in regards to vacation rental information and tracking. Is that correct?
Yes.
Second.
Seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. All right, Madam Attorney, do we have anything else come before us at the public hearing this evening?
No, we do not, Mr.
We are on unagended speakers. Mr. Cook, how many unagended speakers do we have?
We have, give or take, 20 speakers, Mayor.
All right, let's get going.
The first speaker we have tonight is Bill Proctor, followed by Erwin Jackson.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Bill Proctor, 301 South Monroe Street. I'm here speaking on the 3-year fire contract for the Tallahassee-Leon County Fire Department, which is supported by both city and county residents. City and county residents pay $51.4 million for fire services to the City of Tallahassee. You receive an additional $67 million from state and federal sources for an amount of about $58 million total. Leon County residents paid to the city $11.4 million for fire service fees. The city transferred about $11.6 million of this total. It collected this money and transferred it to its general fund. Translated, what this means is that all of the total amount collected from those persons who live in unincorporated areas, all of that money is transferred to, or that amount of money is transferred to your general account. This is a 22% bait and switch, or this is a 22% taking from the firefighters fund, a fee that ought to be dedicated for purposes of firefighter services. Commissioners, I want you to return the $11 million back to the fire department. Pay the fire workers, you have our money. Citizens want them paid, we want them honored, and we request of you in the report and request for relief that was submitted to you on yesterday that you would do the right things. Among those elements that we asked was for $60,000 for starting amount for our firefighters. As you're aware, other public safety persons such as our TPD, they are paid around that amount. We're asking that the 18.69 paid for pension be reduced by 4.25, by else made equal to the 10.29, which Tallahassee Police are paying for pension. We're asking that the 53-hour work week be reduced to 42 hours per week. Our fire workers are working 53 hours. They don't count to overtime until you get the hour number 54. We ask a minimum of 4 persons per shift instead of the 3, which is the average now. The annual cancer screenings, physical exams, and mental health evaluations ought to be paid by the city because fire workers have a 70% greater probability of contracting cancer, more so than others. The incidence of mental health problems are also much greater than the general professional public, and this commission can make this happen. We're calling on you because you're our city commission. We're calling on you because you have the money. We want you to put that money that you're transferring back on the table and serve the needs of which this county and all of its residents. I need to say finally.
Commissioner, I need you to wrap up, please.
Okay. I need to say finally that among the issues that I have dealt with over almost 3 decades,
Thank you, Commissioner.
this is the first that I've never heard anyone say no to.
Thank you.
Support the public.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Erwin Jackson is next.
Name and address for the record, please.
Erwin Jackson, 1341 Jackson Bluff. John Marks will always be remembered for his role in the biomass scam. I call it the triangle of deception and greed. The goal was to have the ex-president of FSU, Tallahassee City Commission, and BG&E was a triangle. The goal was to build a 75 megawatt biomass gastric electric plant, a couple blocks from FSU. BG&E was going to receive $600 million from the City of Tallahassee. John Marks' only job was to convince the public that this was new green energy. Unfortunately for him, Dr. Ron Staff, an asthma and allergy specialist, cautioned us that the smokestack industry would, quote, pose significant health threats. Dr. Ed Hollifield at the time simply stated, babies will die. Who were these players? Glenn Ferris, CEO of BG&E, Virginia Weatherall, wife of President T.K. Weatherall. She was a paid lobbyist hired by BG&E. She had and given an ownership interest in BG&E. T.K. Weatherall, president of FSU, he lobbied the city commission with his wife for this scam. Also, T.K. Weatherall offered state land to BG&E, his wife's company, for $1 a year. Alan Katz, city commissioner, he was voting for this, but also was on the payroll of BG&E, providing legal services. Then he actually went ahead and voted, as the other commissioners, for this. And the last person I don't have up there is John Marks. He was the mayor. Convinced the public, his only job, convinced the public that a smokestack industry creating higher utility rates for the citizens and creating medical issues for those on the South Side families was a great idea. A Marks business associate told me years ago, privately, that Marks would receive a 6-figure payment the first day the biomass plant operates. Do you think Glenn Ferris, the CEO, would offer John Marks a bribe? Absolutely. I know. Ferris offered me a bribe to silence my criticism. He said, Jackson, how much will it cost to have you shut up and go away?
You're at 30 seconds.
I said, I will go away. And I did. I went to the state attorney, at the time Willie Meggs, and the FBI. Mr. Meggs promised to take this information to the grand jury. However, once learning this, BG&E left Tallahassee within 24 hours. Yes, the BG&E deal is a big part of John Marks' legacy, and this commission still wants to name a building after him. This is shameful.
You're at 3 minutes.
Dr. Jackson. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Our next speaker, please.
Harry Brown, and then T.J. Roche.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Harry Brown, I reside at 5431 Crump Road, Tallahassee. I'm here to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God. You know, I come to this commission meetings very often. I try to make each one every month. But I come to the commission meeting, after commission meeting, observing you, Mayor, claiming to be setting examples for others to follow. Individuals coming to the meetings observe you allowing anything you want to go on. The community observes you allowing Reese Gold to place the chief of police in office without the community's input. He is allowed to do whatever he wants to do. Tom Cole left it that way when he left as chief of police. You and other commissioners know that was wrong. Bette Miller says it best when she says, God is watching us. He is allowed to terminate the HR director without cause, simply because she complained about what was going on in the police department. The police department was dubbed cesspool when Tom Cole was there. And he came to City Hall and tried to run it like a cesspool. In fact, it was, because he ran me out of City Hall with a gun in my back without cause. All I ever did at this city was good. I tried to make this building look like Taj Mahal, and other people around the community saw that. Even Lawton Childs, he saw it and gave me a letter of proclamation. Tom Cole, he's a monster. You know that the way I was terminated was wrong, but you, Mr. Mayor, stated that you agreed with it. When Anita Favors took $31,000 of my severance pay, and she said she had discretion and could do what she wanted to do for me. She did it, took $31,000. Is there any of you would like anybody taking $31,000 from you? Any of you? Any of you would like $31,000 taken from you? No.
You're at 30 seconds.
My time runs out quicker than anybody else's. Anyway, I want you to know this city is never going to get better for city employees especially, as long as you're using this raunchy, funky city charter. Charter been in business over 200 years. And the only people that helps, people like you, Reese Gold, and others sitting up here on this dais. You're not doing anything.
3 minutes.
And you two black folks sitting up there,
Thank you, Mr.
you need
Brown.
to get out of here.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
You're in the
Time
biggest
is up.
black churches in.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Next speaker is T.J. Roche, followed by Bernard Stevens.
Name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
TJ Roach, 2724 Bedford Way. Okay. I am here today to speak on behalf of myself, my family, the Tallahassee Professional Firefighters Union, and my brothers and sisters at the Tallahassee Fire Department. For the last year, you all have heard about the concerns that the members of TFD have voiced regarding a competitive salary and benefit package for our frontline members. This is an attempt for TFD to remain competitive and adequately staffed, and for the city and county to remain safe. Despite what you've heard, the majority of this commission refuses to acknowledge the problem or believe that there was, and I quote, a mass exodus underway. Today I stand before you, sadly, a former member of the Tallahassee Fire Department. And I'm here again in an attempt for you not only to hear our cries for help, but for you to see and feel the consequences of your negligence. Unfortunately, the majority of you have repeatedly proven to lack the equipment necessary to understand the importance and the gravity of my message. I'm a well-qualified, intelligent, passionate Tallahassee native who has decided to leave family, friends, familiar faces, and places, and in a department that I've grown to love and appreciate, for a better opportunity elsewhere. I've accepted a firefighter position in a city whose elected and appointed leaders recognize the value of their firefighters, and they acknowledge their worth. Make no mistake, my resignation from TFD is of no fault of the department itself or its members. My grievances lie solely with the majority of the elected and appointed officials that sit before me today. A majority who repeatedly put their personal and political agendas ahead of doing what is right. Delaying to do what is right is 100% a wrongdoing. I pray the city will soon elect the long overdue leadership that it deserves, and I wish the best for my brothers and sisters at the Tallahassee Fire Department. Jack and Jeremy, I thank you for your continued support of TFD. For the rest of you that were elected to lead and make a difference in this community, now's your chance. This department will continue to lose quality, well-qualified members until something changes. What are we waiting for, guys? We're losing people at an alarming rate. When you hire people, it's always quality over quantity. And now you're losing both. You're losing quantity and quality. Something has to change.
Thank you.
Bernard Stevens, and then Scott Mazer will follow Mr. Stevens.
Name and address for the record, please.
I don't even think I should even be giving my name because you know it by now because you know my face. I think it's a waste of time. But anyway, so you can get it ringing bells in your ear, it's Reverend Bernard Michael Stevens, Jr. And my address is 300 South Adams Street. Yes, it is. Listen, Mr. Mayor, I hate to say it, but you're incompetent, sir. And it's the truth. Here's why. The duplicity on the projects to come. You all talk about having projects in this city every day. Diane, put your head up. I'm talking to you. You all have the audacity to talk about projects in this city every day. Every day you talk about that. But these people over here crying and begging for money. And you know, it's a good old story in that Bible about Jesus, right? Who put him on the cross? The governor. That was Governor Pilate. Now, that means that's the legislative body. And that means you the head. So you putting all these people on the cross, and they got to be beat. They got to be whipped. They got to be drugged. And then this man want to give a political speech up here. The firefighters endorse me. Who is he? He been in public service for over 20 years. He'd have been over there on the school board. He been doing everything but his job. Shame on him. Shame on you. I don't respect you as a man because you ain't one. Reese Gold ain't one either. You know why? Because ain't no reason why these people should be in here struggling. Ain't no reason why they should be in here begging for some money. But I thank God for a Fannie Lou Hamer. I thank God for a Rosa Parks. I thank God for a Harriet Tubman because they knew that they was going to stand up to that injustice that we got right here in front of our face. This lady over here, she claims she a black woman, but she all of a sudden sit around here and put her hands on her head and she make us look like clowns. And then this man got the audacity to tell me on the last meeting, he say, yeah, I don't respond to ignorance. But you allowed to say the word damn in the dais? Who are you? Huh? Stop putting yourself on a pedal, bro. Don't even get out the election because you should be ashamed of yourself. But I want to go ahead and give a couple people on the Tallahassee Police Department some recognition. Sergeant Karen Ryan, since it's Women's History Month, since I had my little issue with the Tallahassee Police Department, she was the first one of contact. She listened, she talked to me, and she was so kind. And then when you beat your little gavel and had her come up here and remove me, if it wasn't for her kind, sensible words, Mr. Stevens, please have a seat. And I looked at her and I sat down. Maybe because I got a dialogue with her. But you don't understand that either. Because you so incompetent, bruh. This man right here, just the same. And then don't you ever get up there and try to change my words talking about you're going to strike the record. I don't respond to you. I'm a man. I speak for my own words. If you want a meeting, bro, you give it to me. You ain't done that yet. So that just goes to show y'all got something to hide. Reese Gold, you sitting over here turning, but employees still hurting. Look, this ain't democracy. This ain't democracy. This ain't democracy. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Where is it?
30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. I'm still waiting on Mr. Cook to give me some documents from his office I ain't got yet. Malfeasance. It sucks. Curtis, stop putting yourself up there, bruh. Talking about what you can and can't do and what you done for this community. You ain't done nothing. Nothing, I say. Nothing. And I'm going to tell you all this, and I'm going to go ahead and have my seat. John Daly, if I don't get Curtis Richardson's seat, I'm going going to be the mayor of Tallahassee, and I promise you, won't none of my employees be sitting around here hurting, because I'm going to fire this guy, and I'm going to get rid of anybody else that's stagnating the growth of this city. And I mean business when I say that. Yeah, I bet you do. Why you ain't gave me my meeting yet, bro? Why you ain't gave me my meeting yet?
I'm going to ask you one more time. Please sit down. Your time is up.
You ain't gave me my meeting because you're a coward.
I am going to ask you one more time to please sit down. Thank you. Our next speaker.
Next speaker is Scott Mazer, and then following Scott Mazer, who is next, will be Melinda Lanigan.
Yeah, I know.
Scott Mazer. Here he goes. Your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Scott Mazer, 3319 Dartmoor Drive. This is a little bit different than a school board meeting for sure. What I will say is I stand here as the president of Leon Classroom Teacher Association. The teachers are in support of the firefighters, and that's why I want to speak with you. I know leadership's difficult for everybody. It's one of those things where, you know, you're always going to have to make tough decisions. But I think when it comes down to it, there's some similarities that I've heard, and I'm not sure if it's always truthful, so I just primary source sometimes you need to go to. But the things that I've heard are that as elected officials, sometimes we entrust other people to make decisions, and then as elected officials, those decisions then are our decisions at some point in time. And that's done in a way that maybe we don't have all the information, or we're not necessarily making the decisions ourselves, and we have to insert ourselves as elected people a little bit more than we would. I appoint people to certain things. Their choices, their decisions are a reflection of me at times. And sometimes I have to step in and say things and do things to get things done in a way that I know that I would prefer. And so as elected officials, we're just asking you to lead, and we appreciate your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Melinda Lanigan, followed by Kathy McGuire.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Hi there, I'm Melinda Lanigan. My address is 5090 Withers Hill Road in Tallahassee. First, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. My husband is a retired firefighter of 27 years for the Tallahassee-Leon County Fire Department, and was very proud to do so. So I attended a meeting last week, Thursday, and just wanted to inform you guys of some of the things that came out of that meeting. It was very informational, and it was highly supported by the community. Over 130 people came out to this meeting in support of the firefighters. So as a wife, I just wanted to share a few things with you. And first of all, I strongly encourage you to resolve this matter between the city and the firefighters union. And you guys, the commission was all sent a packet, I think it's about 7 pages long from the Friends of the Tallahassee Firefighters little committee that we have now. And we made that packet with input from people from that community meeting. I want you to think about what these people do and why they do it. If you ask a firefighter, why did you decide to go into this? You know, they're going to tell you, not because we're going to make a whole bunch of money, not because we love the pension that we pay into. They're going to tell you because I want to help people. I want to make a difference every single day when I wake up. I've never met a firefighter who didn't say that. You know, they didn't say, well, you know, I flunked out of lawyer school and I'm going to be a firefighter now. That's not what it is. This is what they want to do. This is their passion. And to hear someone who just had to resign their position because it's the right thing for him to do, it just breaks my heart. So, be a firefighter here, and our firefighters are also EMC certified. There's a lot of training that goes into it, and it costs them between $9,000 and $10,000 just to become a firefighter. There's also continuous training. And I think that's great. We have EMTs as firefighters. Having called the fire department many times myself on medical issues, it was great that they were there for me. Our firefighters started about $44,000 a year, and just under, right around $8,000 is paid into the pension, about 18.69%. That's huge. My husband was the union negotiator many, many years ago, and at that point in time, it was 9%.
You're at about 15 seconds.
Thank you. Basically, y'all, we've got to come to an agreement. The 1 year is important. Let's please make that pay retroactive to October of 2023. And please focus on this 3-year agreement. It is so important, and I appreciate you guys taking the time.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Kathy McGuire. Kathy McGuire will be followed by Dot Inman Johnson.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Kathy McGuire, 1101 Pine Street. I'm chair of the Alliance of Tallahassee Neighborhoods, and as a change of pace, I'm here to talk to you today about Northwood for a bit. Thank you all for meeting with us and sharing your visions for what that property can be. The good news is that all of you want to use part of it for providing housing that is affordable. We're happy that the city is talking with the Tallahassee Lenders Consortium, as they seem to have our interests at heart, and making a land trust would, using a land trust would allow the city to retain oversight and ownership. You also mentioned wanting green and open space, an area as beautiful as Cascades. And we urge you to develop Northwood as one coherent property, unified by landscaping and sidewalks into a campus shared by police, housing, and community use buildings. We believe the parcel should include a public safety-oriented community building. TPD supports the inclusion of a 24/7 daycare center, restorative justice center, and court-ordered child visitation space, and multi-use meeting rooms that, combined with the space in front of the station, could serve as staging areas during emergencies. We also think the parcel should have a youth-oriented community rooms across from the schools for after-school tutoring, theater, you name it, either as part of the housing development or as city space. So police, community activities, housing, green space, we need a master plan for the site as a whole. The current master plan is a map with the words future development on it. We can and we must do better to make our hopes a reality. So I'm urging you all, before more commitments are made, to direct staff to give you a master plan for your consideration so that you and the public can decide what you want and how we can get ready for it. By keeping Northwood and leasing portions of it, we get the flexibility to address both current and future needs, such as expanding the police station down the road or revamping the mobility center. Keeping the property is more far-sighted than selling it to meet fleeting market needs of mattress stores or marijuana stores in 2024. The city owns and leases other properties successfully, which keeps them in the tax base while y'all are able to control the tenants and use. The zoning there allows just about anything, which is all the more reason for us to keep it and manage it. Keeping Northwood would not recoup its modest cost, but it will provide ongoing opportunities and increased value over time. So I urge you, let's make a plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Dot Inman Johnson, and then Stanley Sims. Then Stanley Sims is next.
Sims, your name and address for the record, please.
My name and address is exempt. Y'all missed the joke. God, Mayor, my baby, Sheldon Hall Sims. He's guarding Gaston County. It's under his watch tonight. I'm proud of that, Sarge. But Mayor, my baby didn't get there by himself. in order for him to get his certification for fire, he had to work hard. I didn't even know that Joey was battling cancer. And I'm aggravating the hell out of him about my child. I found that out at the other meeting, and never once, he gets short, never once, not answering my call, never once, because I'm long-winded sometimes. You always listen to me. Went out to these guys. When my baby failed the EMT test, Sarge, it's hard, the medical terms. I don't even know some of these guys. They were writing, Proctor, they were writing my baby $300 and $400 checks. Okay, yeah, white people too. They were writing my baby's checks. Because you know why, Curtis? Tempo couldn't find a tempo for my child. Tempo wouldn't help him get a job, and the job that they found for my child, former Chief Gaines told him, don't take it. Because hell, they wanted to put him like a damn on a railroad gang side the road. How is he gonna work that job and study? Miss Obadaba Tanabe, she can text nasty, disparaging messages to me.
30 seconds.
But she won't support these guys who she represents. She makes $237,000 a year. And you know what's so sad, Mayor? And young man that's leaving, he had to be in a bad shape. Because these guys here, y'all dog them out and they come back.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Your time is up.
It might be up.
Thank you very much.
Their time is not up.
I'm going to ask you to take your seat. Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Tavish Bryan is next, followed by Tito Leedon.
Your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
Tavish Bryan, address is exempt. April 8th, 2021, Raheem Reeder was shot and killed by TPD. What began as a routine traffic stop at the Ocala Corners Publix escalated into a chase where after Raheem, accompanied by Valerie Hatton and her daughter, took refuge in a Valentia Square townhome occupied by a couple. Evidence from testimonies by this couple suggests that Raheem used force to control their actions once inside the townhome. A struggle ensued between Raheem and the male resident of the home, ending with Raheem jumping through a second-story window, only to be fatally shot by a presently unnamed officer moments later. Valerie Hatton was arrested and her daughter was taken in for questioning after being separated from her mother. The confessions taken from Valerie's daughter were reported on the news outlets and taken as legitimate evidence in the case despite the child having just endured a traumatic event and confessing to police without her mother or some impartial representation support. I think it is clear that despite what one may think of Raheem's actions, he in no way deserved death and that the facts of what happened that night remain unclear. The city has a legal responsibility to release Raheem's killer's name. The Florida Supreme Court deemed it illegal to hide the name of his killer, and yet it remains hidden. The failure of the city to respond to the Supreme Court ruling is precisely why we need a citizen police review board. Furthermore, the current board needs to be protected until it is officially made illegal in July. TCAC demands that Amy Toman review the legality of the city's withholding of the killer cop's name. In addition, the use of Marcy's Law to justify hiding the name of Reeder's killer is a gross distortion of a law meant to protect victims of crime. With the passing of HB 601, SB 576, banning CPRBs, and the flagrant abuse of Marcy's Law to protect both to both protect and classify killer cops as victims, the likelihood of another police killing such as this will surely increase. Moreover, the odds will remain in favor of the police as our community lays stripped of any way to enforce oversight on our police force. TCAC met with the Reeder family years ago in the midst of their initial grief and suffering that has needlessly been prolonged due to the city's failure to adhere to its own laws, alongside perpetuating a slanderous and dehumanizing image of Reeder as a hostage taker and thief. The attacks on Raheem Reeder's character are attacks on his whole family. The Reeder family deserves to know this killer cop's name. The least TPD can do is release the names of Raheem's killer nearly 3 years after his death. And also, to change topics.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. This commission has resolutely refused to pass a resolution condemning the genocide in Palestine. The death toll stands at 32,000 approximately confirmed deaths, not including Palestinians trapped in the rubble. The UN has passed a ceasefire resolution, and many other city councils across this nation have passed a ceasefire resolution. And where does this council stand? Absolutely nowhere.
You're at 3 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Release his name, community oversight now, free
Thank you.
Palestine.
Our next speaker, please.
Tito Leedon, followed by Delilah Pierre.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Good day, Tito Leedon, and my address is exam 2. I'm here to read the TCAC statement in support of the firefighters. The Tallahassee Community Action Committee stands with the Tallahassee Professional Firefighters, IAFF Local 2339, in their struggle for fair pay and benefits. 1 year has passed since the TPF first began their negotiations with the City of Tallahassee with no agreement reached. The City Commission has the power to direct the City Manager, Reese Gould, to accept the IAFF's proposal for a majority vote. But since 3 of the commissioners, Diane Williams-Cox, Curtis Richardson, and Mayor John Daly, are interested in developer contracts, they refuse to do so. They're more interested in developer contracts. They refuse to do so. We stand against Daly, Williams-Cox, Richardson, and Golden, their refusal to work with TPF for a decent and fair contract. Our firefighters are struggling because their pay isn't keeping up with the rising cost of living. Some have resorted to getting second jobs to make ends meet. They also want to work few hours each week, which is better for their health. Across the nation, the firefighting industry is moving away from the old standard of 53 hours towards a 43 hours week for the sake of mental and physical health. Tallahassee is nowhere close to making that move, with Tallahassee firefighters working many more hours than those cities such as Tampa, Orlando, and Fort Lauderdale. Cancer is one of the leading causes of death among firefighters. State law mandates that firefighters diagnosed with cancer be given a lump sum and time off to receive adequate treatment. Instead of doing what is right, the City of Tallahassee has instead chosen to repeatedly deny firefighters like Joey Davis, president of TPF, the time off that they are owed according to state law. The City of Tallahassee's actions are not only morally reprehensible, but against state law. The City Commission seems to care more about making deals with property developers and throwing money at the police than treating firefighters with respect and dignity. The police budget takes up 38% of the city's general funds, with $10 million more this year than last. $7 million of that increase is just for patrol operations. In that same time frame, the city has dragged its feet in negotiations with firefighters, refusing to give them even the bare minimum pay increase and benefits.
You have 30 seconds.
We need a people's budget that looks after people, meets our needs, and respects all workers, including our brave firefighters. The City of Tallahassee should put the well-being of people who protect us before anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Delilah Pierre, followed by Thomas Spears.
Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name's Delilah. My address is exempt, and I'm here to talk about the lack of the release of the cop's name who killed Raheem Reeder. And I actually have a question that I would like an answer to at the end of my 3 minutes for City Attorney Amy Tolman, whose duty, according to the Tallahassee City website, is to provide legal counsel and represent the Tallahassee City Commission, as well as other city departments, and provide legal advice. So why has, even though in November, on November 30th, 2023, a Florida Supreme Court ruling that said that the City of Tallahassee and the Tallahassee Police Department must release the names of the police officers responsible for the deaths of Michael Johnson, Tony McDade, and Raheem Reeder, why haven't the city taken the steps to have those names released? Why did the Tallahassee Democrat have to write an article and post those names there? And why didn't the Tallahassee Police Department even respond to the Tallahassee Democrat? This is exactly my fear about the destruction of the Citizens Police Review Board, which City Commissioners John Daly, Curtis Richardson, and principally, most importantly, Diane Williams-Cox are responsible for, no matter what she tells you or how she tries to play it. And it's also, I think, the responsibility of City Manager Reese Goad, who not only has taken an action in preventing us having a budget that truly reflects the people in the city of Tallahassee, but has clearly spent more of his time, instead of engaging in conduct that supports members of our community, ruining the lives of firefighters who just want to make sure to keep our community safe. This is exactly why we need to protect the Citizens Police Review Board for as long as it can exist, and release the name of the cop who killed Raheem Reeder. I think it's incredibly disappointing to see firefighters, members of our community, have to come out again and again and again to every city commission meeting to demand the bare minimum, and then for them basically to be ignored for their demands to not be recognized at all. And I think I see that same connection in the situation concerning Raheem Reeder and his family. I've met Raheem Reeder's mother, LaTanya Watkins. I've met the entire Raheem Reeder family, and no matter what kind of slander you try to put on his name, Raheem Reeder was put in an incredibly difficult position that night, and he was murdered, and he did not deserve to be murdered, and we deserve to know who was responsible for his killing. The city continually fails members of the public community, and that's why community organizations from every sector of the city come together and say, enough, John Daly, enough, Curtis Richardson, enough, Diane Williams-Cox, enough, Reese Goad. Listen to the public, really listen to their claims. But as we see here, people have to keep on showing up, whether it's the Leon County Teachers Association, other members of our community, or the Tallahassee firefighters themselves, who have literally been fired from their job to ask for the basic respect. That's why we demand the release of the name of the cop killer, of the killer cop. And we also are seeking for y'all to protect the Citizens Police Review Board.
3 minutes are up. Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Thomas Spears. And Mayor, this is the last speaker I have in chambers. We have a couple that we'll go to virtually.
Okay. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Thomas Spears. My address is exempt. First, I have a personal gripe. I do live off of Meridian Road, and Meridian was resurfaced sometime in November or October, a few months ago. And since then, there's been a little 1 or 2 inch lip on a bunch of the side roads going up and down Meridian. I live off one of those side roads. It's tearing up my tires and suspension. It's tearing up everybody's tires and suspension. I don't know what the construction schedule may be, but I would hope that could happen pretty soon to get that smoothed out. Anyway, for the important stuff, we've been coming to this board since October to ask you to condemn Israel, to demand an end to the occupation in Palestine, and to support divestment from the IOF. Since then, over 32,000 Palestinians have been killed, and most of them are women and children. Elected officials and other bodies around the country have called for a 6-week ceasefire, which is not a real solution, but at least it's something. And yet still this body has not made a declaration in support, even of that incomplete solution. More progressive members have long since said that they support a ceasefire, but it's been you three that have said almost nothing. The mayor, slight exception in January, saying you are against forms of hatred, which is not specific to what is happening now, and has been happening since October and has been happening since 1948. There are dozens, if not 100 or more, cities around the country that have come out and voted for a ceasefire, some for a permanent, some for 6 weeks. Still nothing from this body. But even if you want to discard responsibility for standing against a genocide because it's not city business, that does not explain your inaction with the firefighters. I went to that town hall last Thursday, and there's simply no excuse for you three not to vote for RISCO to accept the terms from the TPF. Of all the counties in the Big Bend, the firefighters of TPF get paid the least. The take-home pay, as the previous speaker mentioned, is so low that the last time a poll was done, somewhere between 75% and 80% of the lowest 2 ranks had to take a second job just to make ends meet. And since October 11th of last year, 11 firefighters have left TPF just for the sake of pay. It's just unconscionable not to accept their terms. Those terms are not wild at all. They're modest at best. There's no issue increasing the police budget by $10 million, but you can't even give the modest amount that the firefighters are asking for. Commissioner Richardson, earlier you spoke about getting the endorsement from the firefighters. And I've seen the picture on their website, maybe a couple years old, of them holding a street sign on the corner of Monroe and Tennessee.
You're at 30 seconds.
You're not getting that endorsement this time. It's been way too late this time. I know I have an idea who's going to get it this time, but it's not going to be you. Even if you come around and do it and vote now, it's kind of too late. The mission of the City Commission is to be the national leader in the delivery of public service. This body is trailing behind 100 other cities in terms of supporting a ceasefire. It's trailing behind supporting the firefighters. It's trailing behind releasing the name of the killer of Raheem Reeder. It's about time that you guys catch up and do what you're supposed to do.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is connected virtually.
How many do we have virtually?
Two.
Okay.
Jamie Hart is the first speaker.
Jamie Hart. Jamie Hart?
Hello?
Yes, your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes, and the clerk will tell you when you are at 30 seconds left.
Jamie Hart, I sent my address. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I come today to speak on behalf of the parents of the Lake Jackson area. I'm asking / requesting that we have a water pad for the children at the Fred George Park. It is extremely hot here in Florida, and with the surrounding kids that go to school here and live here, they should have a place nearby for them to cool off. This will bring joy to many children, and it is a way to allow people to cool off at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. Will you contact the county administrator, Fred George Parks? Great. Our last speaker.
Our last speaker is Franklin Perez.
Franklin Perez?
Hi, this is Franklin Perez. Can you hear me?
I can. You have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you. My name is Franklin Perez. I live in Seminole and Hillsborough counties. I am asking that you hold the Tallahassee Police Department accountable for refusing to release the name of Raheem Reeder's killer, who is a Tallahassee Police Department cop. The Tallahassee Police Department is abusing Marcy's Law, which is meant to protect victims, to wrongfully protect killer cops. This is why we need community control now of the police. The purpose of Marcy's Law is to give rights to victims of crime, like the right to privacy. But according to the Tallahassee Police Department, killer cops are so-called victims. The Tallahassee Police Department refuses to release the names of their own police officers that have murdered community members. The Florida Supreme Court ruled against the protection of law enforcement identities through Marcy's Law, yet the Tallahassee Police Department won't comply. Please compel the Tallahassee Police Department to release the name of the killer cop that killed Raheem Reeder. The problem is that current civilian review boards, when they do exist, have no real power. All they can do is make recommendations. Thus, there is largely no accountability by police officers because police departments police themselves. What we need is a Police Accountability Act that would require the formation of civilian review boards with real teeth to oversee state, county, and city police departments with the full powers to independently investigate, discipline, and terminate problem police officers. We also need to do away with qualified immunity because it gives police officers a virtual license to kill. Also, please rescind all pro-Israel resolutions you have made in the past. Enough. Israel is a Jewish supremacist apartheid state that has been committing ethnic cleansing and human rights abuses against Palestinians for 75 plus years, as per reputable human rights organizations like B'Tselem, Human Rights Watch, and Amnesty International. And now you can add genocide, as Israel is on trial at The Hague for genocide against Palestinians. Stop supporting Israel. Stop giving it money. Stop giving it weapons, and condemn it for what it is, an apartheid and genocidal state. At this point, due to scattered Zionist-only occupier settlements in the West Bank, the only fair solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict is a one-state solution where everyone, Jew and Palestinian, has equal rights in a free Palestine from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. All U.S. government entities should be pressuring the Israeli apartheid regime to move towards such a free Palestine. The refrain that Israel has the right to self-defense is a red herring. The real question is, does Israel have the right to use force to maintain an illegal occupation and apartheid state that commits ethnic cleansing, genocide, and human rights abuses against Palestinians? The clear answer is no. Under international law, Israel has no right of self-defense because it is the oppressor and occupier. I request that you introduce a resolution to stand with Palestinians in demanding an end to the siege of Gaza, a permanent ceasefire, and an end to all U.S. aid to Israel. Military, economic, political.
Your 3 minutes are
Already
up.
U.S. Already U.S. 47 U.S. cities have
Mayor,
passed
we have no
ceasefire
additional
resolutions.
speakers.
All right, we stand
Ceasefire now.
adjourned.
Thank you.